Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Julian, and I'm going to be your host today for the Tennessee Tax Overview for New Businesses, also known as our New Business Workshop. Joining me today, I've got Billy Trout, who is Manager of Taxpayer Education for Taxpayer Services with the Department of Revenue,
Hi,
and
good
Dan
morning.
Vinson. Hey, Billy. Dan Vinson is also joining us today. He is the Assistant Director of Taxpayer Services. We are all on the same team, a team that is part of taxpayer education. We are here to help new businesses and help tax professionals with compliance with the Tennessee tax laws. This is a workshop that we offer quarterly. This is our first one of 2026, obviously. So happy to have you here joining us. If you are a new business, you are doing the right thing by starting here. If you have already started your business and you learned something today that maybe it's something that you think, I'm not sure if I did that right. It's okay. We're here to help you better to catch it early, right? If you have not yet started your business, then even better, you can kind of start off on the right foot by knowing the right direction to go in. So, on behalf of our Commissioner of Revenue, David Garagano, we just want to thank you for being here with us today. It's going to be a long morning, about 3 hours. We're going to take a break, at least one break, but just to cover a few housekeeping things here, you see a QR code on your screen. If you want to scan that, that will take you. And I think also, let's see here. Yeah, Billy put it over in the chat. There's a link over to the PDF of this presentation. It's going to contain hyperlinks because the hyperlinks you'll see on your screen here through WebEx are not going to be, you can't click on them, but you can click on the hyperlinks that we provide in the PDF. So the way things are going to go, we're going to work through a few different sections, um, excuse me, and then have a few times that we can stop and have a Q&A where you'll be able to put your chat questions into the chat that will go through to us panelists here, Billy, Dan, and I, and then we'll move on to different topics. It's a good way to kind of compartmentalize because changing topics between tax types can be a little bit confusing, and we're going to try to make it as simple as possible. Honestly, y'all, this could be a full day or multiple day workshop. So we're really going to cram a lot of information into just 3 hours. So just to get started here, first thing I want to talk about is who we are, the Taxpayer Services Division of the Tennessee Department of Revenue. You can see in the little box to your right on the screen here, we are the customer service arm of the Tennessee Department of Revenue. We answer your questions. We have a call center. You can email us or submit help tickets or call us with questions. Not to brag, but to brag, we are known for having a very responsive um, customer service team here that when you call, unless it's maybe a tax deadline day, you're quickly going to get a person on the phone. This stuff can be confusing. We understand that, and we're here to help. So just like what we're doing right now, we educate to improve compliance. We help register businesses. Again, we've got a call center, and we also do a lot of processing of exemptions and that kind of thing. You see the pie chart in front of you here? This just shows you, if you want to zoom in, there's a little plus sign on your screen to zoom in, but this is a breakdown of state revenue sources. The particular one is for the fiscal year 24. This doesn't change too much for the most part. Most of the revenue in this state comes through tax revenue is sales tax revenue, over 60%. The little dollar image you see here just shows you how each sales tax dollar is spent. Of course, if you're a business who sells a service or a product eligible or subject to sales tax, you're going to collect that from your customer and then remit it over to us. So we all pay sales tax here in this state. Visitors to the state, if you're buying anything here, they're going to pay sales tax. But just a breakdown of how each dollar is spent, 56 cents of each dollar goes towards education. You can see here that 28 cents out of the dollar goes to the state's general fund, and 16 cents out of every dollar goes right back into the local government in the jurisdiction where the sales tax was collected. So an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. The first section is going to be getting started, all the stuff to do, all the places you go to get licenses, how to figure all that stuff out before you even get started. Of course, we're not going to be talking about things like your marketing or that kind of stuff. We're just focusing on the stuff that's relevant to taxes, state taxes, that is. Then we'll take a little break to answer your questions about those topics. Then we're going to dive into the three major tax accounts: sales tax, business tax, and franchise and excise tax. Possibly discussing some other ones, but basically those big major three that are going to affect most businesses in this state. And then we'll stop, have another little section time to answer your questions. We may actually stop in between tax types for short sessions to answer your questions, because it's kind of like putting a different hat on when you're talking about each different tax type. Then the final section of this morning, we're going to be discussing TINTAP. It's basically where the rubber meets the road. Kind of TINTAP is our online tax account place where you go to, kind of like online banking for all of your Tennessee tax accounts. We're going to show you how that works. And again, we'll take a little break away at least once during the morning to give you a chance to step away from the computer for a second. Y'all are going to get sick of my voice by the time it's 11:30 Central Time. I'll tell you that much. I apologize in advance. All right, so diving right in here to getting started. This is a screenshot of tn.gov/revenue and a place where you see, actually, let me put my laser pointer on this for businesses tile. We're going to take a little field trip over to our website, and I'll take you over to where we're going to be talking about, which is this for new businesses area. All right, you should see my web browser now, and this is Billy, Dan, do y'all see the web browser? Are we good?
Katie, I see it. Yep, no
Great.
problem.
No problems. Okay. So we are on tn.gov/revenue. This is Revenue's homepage. If you are a tax professional, I'm sure you're very familiar with this. If you are a new business, we want this website to become your friend. Okay, I'm scrolling down to for businesses. I'm going to take you on a tour. You're going to know a lot about this website by the end of the morning, but for starters here, I'm going to take you to for businesses, this tile right here. Click on that, and then specifically for new businesses. And we're going to just follow right along here, starting with step one, setting up a new business. All right, so we're going to just walk through each of these steps within setting up a new business. The first is establishing a business name. You may have already done this, especially if you're already in business. You can visit the Small Business Association's website for some tips on selecting your business names, and the state's Secretary of State's website for a business name availability database. I will tell you, we're going to talk here in a minute about entity types, but if you are a sole proprietor, if you're going to be a sole proprietor, set yourself up as a sole proprietor. You're going to be setting yourself up with the Tennessee Department of Revenue, with your tax account being in your name. So if I, Katie Julian, is setting up a business and I'm a sole proprietor, my tax account is going to be set up. My legal name, Katie Julian, is going to be how my business is registered with the state, with a DBA, or doing business as, with my business name. If you are an LLC, corporation, so on and so forth, your legal business name will be the name of your business that you register with the Secretary of State. Business addresses, this is another pretty important thing. Again, if you've already started your business and you realize that you've gotten this confused a little bit, that's okay, we can help you. Building structures of brick and mortar will have a physical location address, okay? If you are an online-based business, your location address is the physical place where your records are maintained. That, for most people, is going to be your home. So for an online-based business, your location address would be your home, if that is where the business is based out of. It cannot be a PO box. That location address is going to be tied to taxes that are location specific. Business tax, and sales and use tax. We'll dive into those later, but both of those, there are allocations from those taxes that are going to be go back to the local jurisdiction. So it's real important that we have the actual location address. No PO boxes. The mailing address where you receive letters or important documents, that can be a PO box. The mailing address can be a PO box, but the location address cannot. Our system won't even accept a PO box as a location address. Determining your business structure or entity type. This is something that we will not advise you on, but we can let you know about the different types. We can't advise you on what to be, I should say, but we will advise you on what the different types of entities entail. A sole proprietorship, if you click the little drop down here, this is the most common form of a business structure. The primary entity number for a sole proprietorship is going to be the social security number of that sole person. So if I'm setting up a sole proprietorship, the legal name for my tax account is going to be Katie Julian. My DBA might be Katie's Clothing or Katie's Restaurant, whatever. But my tax account is going to be set up under my social security number. You may have an EIN, an FEIN, a federal employer identification number, but you would set up your tax accounts using your social. All right. I'm going to skip right down here to a partnership. Oops, scroll up just a little bit here. A general partnership is an entity composed of two or more persons who agree to contribute to the business. Each partner shares the profits, losses, so forth. The primary entity number for a partnership is the entity's FEIN. A social security number and name of each number is required, though. Limited partnership, or LP or LLP, a limited liability partnership. This is a business type composed of one or more general partners and one or more limited partners. The general partners have full management and control of the business and have full personal responsibility of all debts. The entity number that you're going to get set up with your tax accounts is going to be the entity's FEIN number. Then you've got an LLC. Professional LLCs, corporations, all three of these you're going to have to register with the Secretary of State as well. A single member LLC or an SM LLC is one individual or entity through special written agreement that has just one member. The primary entity number for the LLC is the owner's social security number or the FEIN. There's also a multi-member LLC, which is one or more individuals or entities through a special written agreement. The primary entity number is going to be the FEIN. We will need social security numbers for each member, though. Let's skip down to corporation. This is a more complex business structure. A chartered legal entity corporation has its own rights, privileges, and liabilities. You are also going to be registering with the Secretary of State if you're a corporation. You're going to register with us through the FEIN number of the corporation, including S Corps. And, nonprofits who have been granted tax exempt status by the IRS. You may still have tax liabilities on the state side, depending on what the nonprofit does. Okay, registering your business with the Secretary of State. So this is going to be required for any corporation, limited partnership, LLC, or business trust that's chartered to do business in this state. So if you are calling yourself an LLC, that is then you are an LLC and you are required to register with the Secretary of State. Just so you know, we'll dive into this a little bit later, but if you are an LLC, corporation, limited partnership, and you register with the Secretary of State, which is required, you also will be liable for our state's franchise and excise tax. Just something to keep in mind. Sole proprietorships are not. Determining an effective business start date. This is real important. The effective business start date is the date that your tax obligation begins. So if you've chartered with the Secretary of State prior to registering with us, you're going to use the date that you chartered with the Secretary of State. I was speaking with someone just yesterday that actually got their EIN number a few weeks ago. It was in December, and thought that that meant they needed to, they hadn't started operations yet. All she had done was she got her EIN number, but had not yet started operations, had not registered with the Secretary of State, no income yet, had not actually started the business. I said, hey, you don't need your F&E account yet. If you do that, if you set up your F&E account starting with when you got your EIN number back December 2nd, you're going to be liable for F&E taxes for that fiscal year. So why don't you wait until you actually start? So determining that start date is critical, because that's when you're going to be liable for taxes. I want to talk for just a minute about your start date when it comes to sales tax. A lot of businesses, if you are selling something, you're going to want to go ahead and get that sales tax account so that you can use a resale certificate to buy products that are going to be reselling, right? Well, if you start that sales tax account or open up that sales tax account in order to get your resale certificate, our system doesn't know you have not started yet. We're going to be expecting a monthly sales tax return unless you let us know that you haven't started yet. So if you open up a sales tax account, get that resale certificate, start using it, but you haven't started your business yet, you either need to let us know ASAP, or you need to start filing a sales tax return monthly, even if it's just zero, because you haven't sold anything yet. You can get into a kind of a messy situation if you don't do that. And don't worry, I'm going to repeat this here in a little while when we dive into sales tax, but just wanting to stress the importance of the business start date. Applying for your EIN number, that's something that you're going to do through the IRS. A lot of people confuse the Tennessee Department of Revenue with the Federal Internal Revenue Service. I guess we just have the word revenue in common and we both collect taxes, but we are very different than the federal IRS. They're who you go to obtain your EIN number. You're going to need that EIN number if you have, for example, employees. It's going to be required for those entities that are going to be registering with the Secretary of State. But that's something you do through the IRS, and it's a very easy process. There's a link right here. I'm not going to spend too much time on your NAICS code. That's the North American Industry Classification System code. That is something that is required when you open up your tax accounts, but there's a little guide that walks you through choosing. It's just a way to classify and identify what type of business you are. Are you a restaurant? Or do you sell clothing? Are you a gas station? Are you a, I don't know, do you sell cars? What is it that you do? That's going to help you identify what your NAICS code is. You're going to need to determine your fiscal tax year. This is going to be required on any forms that you fill out. Most businesses have a calendar year, fiscal year in 12 consecutive months beginning on January 1 and ending on December 31. Some have a different fiscal year, but that's something that's going to be important for you to determine and keep in line. All of these things we're talking about right here, these steps to setting things up, they're all items that you're going to want to keep consistent through everywhere that you're setting up your business, not just with us, with the Secretary of State, with your county or city clerk's office, with the Department of Labor, if you are required to pay unemployment insurance tax. That's one tax that we here at Department of Revenue do not handle. That unemployment insurance tax, that's handled through Department of Labor. But all of this information, your business name, your fiscal year end, the entity type that you are, it all needs to stay consistent. And if you ever do change it, you're going to have to change it everywhere. A little bit of a process there, but just make sure that you stay consistent. Identifying directors, officers, and shareholders, that's for corporations. That's something that you want to keep track of. If that ever changes, you need to make sure it stays consistent and that we are made aware here at Department of Revenue that you've made that change. All right, let's see here. I'm going to go back over to the PowerPoint real quick. Oh, new business checklist. Over where I just was, there's a checklist, and I have a link to it that you can get to in the PDF, but sorry to make you dizzy here, but I'm actually going to go back over to the website to show you that checklist. Back over to my browser. Bear with me. Sorry, there's this thing that gets in my way where I can't see my tabs. There we go. At the top here of setting up your business, actually not the top, let me go back one. Uh, Back to the for new businesses tile here. This is the checklist. It's a printable worksheet that you can follow along with all of these steps. I'll just click on it real quick and show you. Establishing your business name, what's your location address, what's your mailing address, what type of structure. We just talked about all these things right here. We have not gotten down to step 2, your licenses and permits, but we'll get there in just a second. Okay, going back over to our Okay, so there was a tile for licenses and permits. Give me one second, I have to sneeze. Okay, it left me. Good. Good for y'all there too. That's good. Okay, I was about to mute, but there is a tile for licenses and permits, but what I have right here, I think, kind of sums it up a little bit better in my opinion, but you can always click on the tile over there on the For New Businesses page. But basically, your business license, that's something that is going to be required for most businesses with just a few exceptions when we talk about business tax, which ties in with a standard business license. We'll dive a little deeper into this, but most businesses are going to need a business license of some sort, either a minimal license or a standard license. It's going to depend on how much money your business makes or how much gross receipts your business has. But that license is obtained from your definitely from a county clerk's office, and most cities in the state also have a business license requirement. We'll be sharing with you a link that shows you which municipalities or cities require a business license. Your charter or your business registration, that's done through the Tennessee Secretary of State. And like I mentioned earlier, that's going to be required for partnerships, corporations, LLCs, and business trusts. Your FEIN number, we just talked about that. That's obtained through the IRS. Again, that's going to be required if you're a partnership, corporation, LLC, and if you are going to have employees, you're going to need that federal employee identification number as well. But again, here's a little reminder, a little test back to what we talked about a few minutes ago. If you're a sole proprietor, you are going to set up your tax accounts with the state of Tennessee using your social, not an EIN. If you're in business and you messed that up and it didn't get caught yet, just reach out to us and we can fix that. We're going to be sharing with y'all later a few different ways to reach out to us. That unemployment insurance that I mentioned to you, that's going to be required for businesses with employees or payroll, and that is a tax, but it's one of the only taxes here in the state of Tennessee that we don't handle. It's handled through the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. If you've got the PDF open, you can click over to their website here. Some businesses are required, certain professions are required to hold a professional license, like contractors, cosmetologists, insurance agents, physicians. Those are going to be obtained through the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance. A link there will tell you which different professions require a professional license. This is different than your business license. I was at a clerk's office one time and a contractor was in there saying, I've got my contractor's license. And the clerk was saying, well, you need a business license also. So certain professions and businesses need both, like a contractor, for example. Also, some holders of professional licenses are going to be required to pay a tax to us, just a few of them it's called professional privilege tax, and we're actually not going to be getting into that today. If you are going to be selling alcoholic beverages for consumption on premises, you're going to need an alcohol license, and that is obtained through the TABC. That also now applies, I probably need to update this chart to businesses that are going to be selling the hemp-derived cannabinoids as well. Okay, in the bottom row here, your Tennessee state tax accounts. That's us. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Tennessee Department of Revenue, and again, this is going to apply to most businesses with very few exceptions. You are going to be on the hook for some type of tax account with the Department of Revenue. We don't have an income tax here in the state of Tennessee, and we are we have the number 3 most fiscally stable state in the United States, and that is thanks to mostly the sales tax revenue that we bring in, that if you remember from that pie chart from the first slide, but then also some other of these taxes that businesses are responsible for. Very low rates, the franchise excise tax and the business tax, but for the most part, if you're a business in this state, there's a good chance that you're going to be collecting sales tax from your customers and then just remitting it over to us. You're just a repository for those funds until you remit them over to us. Okay, I'm going to go back over real quick to the website and make sure we covered a few bases. Back over here. For new businesses, we talked about setting up a business, talked about your licenses and permits. Here in just a few minutes, we are going to dive into setting up your tax accounts if you may be exempt. And later on, like I said, we're going to be talking about TIN-TAP. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat and see if you have any questions about what we just talked about, these steps to setting up your business. So you have the ability now to ask a question in the chat to our panel. Unfortunately, we're not able to open up chat for everyone to see everyone's questions for liability purposes and to keep sensitive content about businesses private, but go ahead and shoot your questions to our panel.
Katie, while we're waiting for people to type in a potential question, one thing that you covered, in fact, you covered a whole lot of it, is how important it is to start off on the right foot. And when you're registering and determining your business structure and the different things that are required as the backbone of your business, it's so important to know what you're doing up front. And if you don't know, a lot of the resources that you had pointed out in your presentation there are very important. Reach out to other people, reach out to professionals, reach out to accountants, CPAs, the Tennessee Small Business Development Centers, and people like that that can really help you. It's no sin to not know everything that you need to know. Just want to make sure that you get it started on that right foot, and it's so important.
Absolutely. And like I said earlier, if you have a question that even if you think you may have gotten part of what we just talked about confused and maybe got set up a way you weren't intending to, it can be fixed, and it's easier to fix it early on than later. So
We have a couple of questions, Katie. Laura's asking, that she says she's a new business that collects sales tax and was unaware that they need to file monthly. Can we show you how to do that in TIN-TAP? You want to contact us directly on that, Laura, and let us talk to you. Most of businesses are set up on a monthly basis. Some are set up quarterly or annually. So if you're not aware of what your status is based on your filing registration certificate, then then we can talk through that with you. So you can give us a call and we'll be glad to help you out on that. We're going to share contact information later, and you're most welcome to contact us. Let's see, what else do we have here? Do partnerships have to pay franchise taxes? No, they don't. General partnerships, limited partnerships, not subject to uh, the um, the Tennessee franchise and excise taxes. Anything else you see there, Katie, you want to touch on?
I have Kristen's asking here, where can I look up the current NAICS code for my LLC to see if it's still accurate? If you're wondering how to look up what we have as your NAICS code, I'm not so sure there's a way to do that, Billy. Do you know if on 10 that they can look it up? I can show them where to look up NAICS code with the NAICS website. But in terms of what we have, I think you may have to reach out to us for that if
Yeah,
I'm
we would
not.
need to look and
Yeah.
see what you had registered for as
Mhm.
far as that goes. We can adjust that for you if needed. One thing to know is that it's not super critical on our end to do that and to keep that updated. It's helpful, but it's not super critical.
Right.
The reason that that is done a lot is for a lot of reasons is for statistical purposes because the federal government and state governments and otherwise like to be able to track the types of businesses that are operating out there, not for any other reason other than to just say, okay, we have this many restaurants in this county and we have this many, car repair places in this city, stuff like that, so that we can basically gather data and economic data and things like that. But that's the basic premise for it.
I'm seeing some questions in here that are kind of tax type specific, and we're about to answer some of those questions when we dive into these tax types. So I don't just want y'all to know we're not ignoring, we're just not wanting to get ahead of ourselves here, trying to right now focus on these things we just talked about. Okay, I think looking at the questions you've got, we're going to touch on that. As far as I can tell, we're going to touch on all these when we start talking about the tax types. So I think I'm going to go ahead and charge ahead. Billy, do
I'm
you see
gonna
anything related to just the
No,
setting up
someone
your
said they
business?
needed a link to the materials. I'm gonna
Got it.
post that
I just
again.
posted it
And
too. Yeah.
did you do it? Okay, then I'm
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks,
y'all.
Katie.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. Um, like I said, we're going to just charge ahead here to talking about tax accounts, y'all. It's going to answer hopefully a lot of your questions that you've gotten here about some tax account stuff. So what you see here is a screenshot of our homepage, tn.gov/revenue, and I'm going to go show you here in a few minutes where the taxes page is. It's basically a page that's going to break down. There's several different places on our website where you can get lots of information about all these tax types. But before taking you over there, I'm going to show you just an overview here. As I mentioned earlier, there are three big major tax types for businesses in Tennessee. Sales tax. Sales tax applies to over 4,800 annual retail tangible personal property sales, and we're going to break that down for you, and or over 1,200 annually in tax sales of taxable services. If that applies to you, you're going to be on the hook for sales tax. Business tax. Most businesses, entity type doesn't matter, so entity type means sole proprietor, LLC, whatever, but most businesses with over 100,000 in annual gross receipts are going to be on the hook for business tax. It renews annually your standard business license that you're going to be getting issued to you by your local clerk. A minimal business license is not going to be on the hook for business tax because minimal licenses are for businesses who gross under 100K annually. If you gross over 100K annually, you're going to be on the hook for business tax. There's some exceptions, but we're going to break all that down later. F&E tax, businesses, it's going to apply to businesses that are required to register with the Tennessee Secretary of State. That includes corporations and LLCs. All right, we're going to break down each of these three next, starting with sales tax. Again, as I mentioned, this applies to retailers with over $4,800 in annual sales of tangible personal property things. All right. And also providers of over $1,200 in annual taxable services. We'll explain which services are taxable here in a minute too. Looking at this chart, what is taxable? Stuff, I like to say, or TPP, tangible personal property, and some services, just a few. The rate for sales tax is location based. There's a state rate and there's a local rate. You add those two together. There are some special rates on food and food ingredients, things like that. Who pays sales tax? Well, the business collects it from their customer and then remits it over to the state. How often? The filing frequency. They're set up monthly, but then based on your sales, you can switch over to either quarterly or annually filing. a note, there are lots of exemptions here, y'all. And I already mentioned there's a resale certificate where if you are selling things, you can buy items that you're going to be reselling without having to pay sales tax on those. We're going to break that down. So for each of these tax types, there's going to be a similar screen that you see right now. We're going to show you a link over to the tax manual and a PDF of the basics webinar and how you can also view a video of the basics webinar. So next thing I'm going to do is go over to our website and we're going to walk through some of that and I'm going to show you. Talking about sales tax here. So back to the tn.gov/revenue homepage. All right, earlier we were here, we went down to 4 businesses, but now I'm going to show you where each tax type has its own kind of info page. That's under the taxes tile. You can also get to it by clicking taxes right here, but we'll click on the tile. You can see here the big 3, the most common. We got business tax, franchise tax, and sales tax. Lots of other taxes here, but most don't apply to most businesses. I'm going to show you under tax resources, there was also a tile for this over on the home page, but if you click on under tax resources, click on tax guidance and then tax manuals. You'll see all of our tax manuals listed here. They are awesome. If you're a new business right now, you're starting at a good time. Just about 6 years ago, we didn't have these. And we had these, they were called tax guides. And it was basically, they were good, but basically just a regurgitation of the tax law. These manuals are dynamic. We use them internally all day, every day. They have real life examples. They're organized well. I'm going to show you the sales tax manual. Click on that. You can look up older versions, which if you're a new business, you shouldn't have to do that, but that's kind of relevant if I think tax professionals use that a lot. But the current one is always going to be right here. I don't recommend saving. I'm going to click on it. I don't recommend saving this or bookmarking the actual manual because then you're always only going to have this version, which this current one is the December 2025 one. You would want to maybe bookmark this page. But I digress. We'll go back into the manual and I'll just show you all of our tax manuals are set up the same way. And you can really find answers in here. And like I said, easy to understand examples. There's a table of contents you can link directly over. Some of the stuff at the beginning here is a little boring for you guys. But Nexus, that's going to be relevant if you're an out-of-state business. I highly recommend checking out that area. I'm just going to, not sorry if I make you dizzy, but just scroll down here to show you what it is made of. Sales tax imposition on services and tangible personal property. We're going to break that down here in a minute. Use tax, sourcing, single article. If you sell expensive items over 1,600, where it's one item that's worth more than 1,600, cars, jewelry, expensive clothing, furniture, that's a section you're going to want to check out. I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. But yeah, so I recommend if you sell things, you need to at least become familiar with this manual. Back to tn.gov/revenue. I'm going to take you to where our webinars are housed. Taxpayer Education and Outreach tile. Click there. And in tax webinars, we do offer a free monthly tax webinar. It's on the last Tuesday of every month. We just had one last week. We have an upcoming webinar on consolidated net worth election for the F&E tax. You can see other upcoming webinars, but here's what's really cool. Down here, we have a webinar video library with 75 webinars that we've done over the past several years. And you can search this. I'm going to search just the word basic. And we're going to be walking through these today, y'all. We're going to be walking through sales tax basics, business tax basics, and franchise and excise tax basics. If you click here in the first column, it's going to take you over to a 1-hour recorded video of the actual webinar in all your spare time. I recommend checking that out if you determine that that there's there's a tax type that does pertain to you and your business later, check it out. It'll be helpful. But today we're just going to be kind of scrolling through the PDF of each of these basics webinars: sales tax, business tax, and F&E, franchise and excise tax basics. So if you click on PDF here we go. Uh, this was a webinar that we presented in May of 2024, so it's been about a year and a half, almost 2 years, but not much has changed with sales tax since then. We do update these as there are major changes, but just to scroll through here, we're going to be talking about who and what is subject to sales tax rates, exemptions, and sharing a bunch of sales tax resources with you. So we already showed you that chart. And some resources here. I showed you our sales tax manual, the tax page, and we do have, and I'll show you later, our revenue help section has great articles pertaining to anything and everything tax related in Tennessee. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. I hope y'all can see it okay. But basically, in a nutshell, Tennessee sales tax basics. The tax applies to dealers that are engaged in the business of making sales of taxable products or services in Tennessee. As I mentioned earlier, the retailer or dealer is going to be responsible for the tax and collecting it from their customers. Okay, here you see sales of tangible personal property are usually taxable, sales of stuff, okay, unless the law specifically exempts it, like textbooks, for example. That's a thing, right? An item of tangible personal property. That's TPP that is specifically exempt by law. But most stuff is subject to sales tax. Services generally are not taxable unless the law specifically says that that service is subject to sales tax, or unless the service is part of the sales price of the item of tangible personal property. So generally speaking, sales tax is comprised of a state tax rate plus a local tax rate, and that equals the total sales tax due. A lot of you that are going to be selling things are going to have a point of sale system that these rates are going to be just plugged into. I was helping a restaurant last year that had her local rate was wrong in her system. And she had been, I can't remember now if she was overcharging or undercharging, but make sure that your tax rate is correct. And we'll be showing you how to determine that as well. As I mentioned earlier, there are some special rates on food, digital products, specified digital products, items of single article that I mentioned, those high dollar expensive items, and others. We're going to break all this down. Use tax is a companion tax to sales tax. You may hear it referred to as sales and use tax. It's basically going to be due when sales tax was not collected on an otherwise taxable product that's brought or shipped into Tennessee. It's also going to apply to you as a business if you buy something using your resale certificate because you intend on reselling it, but you end up pulling it from your inventory and using it, you will owe use tax. At the time we did this webinar, we had not yet had a use tax webinar, but we did have a webinar dedicated to this topic in December of 2024, and you can view that webinar in our webinar video library at this point. So are you going to be liable for sales tax, for remitting sales tax? Does your business have a physical presence in Tennessee? Do you have a address here in Tennessee, whether it's if it's an internet based business or your online sales, if your home is here, if this is where you're based, that's considered a physical presence, okay? If the answer to that is yes, and if your in-state tangible personal property sales meet a threshold of $4,800 or more annually, you're going to need to register and file for sales tax. If your in-state sales of services subject to sales tax meet a threshold of $1,200 annually, you're going to need to register. If you don't meet either of those two, then you are not going to be liable for sales tax. So if you're a brand new business and you're just not sure you're going to meet that threshold, don't worry about it yet. Once you meet that threshold, then you need to register with us and then begin at that point collecting sales tax. Okay, if you do not have a physical presence here, your business is based uh, in another state. If an economic nexus sales threshold of $100,000 within 12 months, within a 12-month period is met, and that is $100,000 of sales made to residents of this state, then you will need to register for sales tax. Or if substantial nexus is met, we are not going to be talking about these economic nexus or substantial nexus. If you're an out-of-state business, I'm going to refer you over to, we have 2 webinars. I have a link to one here right now, reporting out-of-state sales by delivery destination. Um, we also have a webinar dedicated to Nexus. So if you're an out-of-state business, check those out. Tax on tangible personal property. Tangible personal property is defined as personal property that can be seen, weighed, measured, felt, touched, or in any manner perceptible to the senses. That's why I like to say stuff. I know that's not a very technical term, but real versus tangible personal property. Real property is that which is immovable, like land, buildings, improvements on land or buildings, and some firmly attached or integrated structures like light fixtures. We do have a chapter in our sales tax manual that will break that down. If you are wondering if what you're selling is considered real or tangible personal property, check that out there. Or when we get to the end of this section about sales tax, we can take your questions about that too. Okay, taxable services. If you're wondering if the service you provide is taxable, here is a list. And there is one thing on this list that is changed. No, it's the last item, but repair or installation of tangible personal property. That includes computer software. Repair or installation of TPP is a service that is subject to sales tax. Lodging services and rooms, that's subject to sales tax. Short-term space rental for making sales. Cleaning of TPP. Parking and storing of motor vehicles. Telecommunication services. Ancillary telecommunication services. And just mark this off the list. The law changed on that. Enriching of uranium materials is no longer subject to sales tax. I'm sure y'all are all excited about that. But if one of these services is relevant to your business, then those services are going to be subject to sales tax. A little further definition about what we consider repair of TPP. That's going to be defined as work done to preserve or restore the item, mending, correcting, altering, refinishing, cleaning that is a necessary part of repair work, or service calls where repair work is done or contemplated. Anything that changes the size, shape, or content of TPP is considered repair of TPP. Okay, moving on from services to rates. As I mentioned, we do have a general state sales tax rate that is 7%. Any county or incorporated municipality can levy their own sales tax rate of up to 2.75, and there is a link um, that you can go to from this PDF to see what your local rate is. We're not going to take the time now because we don't have a whole lot of time, but just know that this is where you get to it. I'm in the Sales Tax Basics webinar PDF, and there's a link over to it right here. You can get to that link over from the sales tax page too. The sales tax rate on food and food ingredients is 4%. This is just a notice that has a good list of what is considered food and food ingredients. We're not talking about restaurant food. Food and food ingredients are items that you're going to buy at the grocery store, not prepared foods, even though some of those are available at the grocery store. But what you're going to see lining the shelves, basically, at the grocery store or in cases. Not prepared food, not food at restaurants, but food and food ingredients. That rate is 4%. The state rate is 4%. For digital products, which is becoming more and more popular, specified digital products are taxed at a state rate of 7% and a standard local rate of 2.5, not whatever the local rate is. We do have a webinar dedicated to that. So what you see in this blue box up here, in-state sellers are going to collect and remit tax the local rate based on where their business is located. Earlier when I was talking about the importance of the location address, even if it's a home-based business, that location where it's located, where it's physically located, is the local rate that's going to be used. Sellers with no locations in Tennessee, so if out-of-state based businesses, are going to charge sales tax if if they do have nexus in the state of Tennessee for sales tax. They're going to charge sales tax based on where that item is being shipped into, what the rate is there. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it doesn't apply to a whole lot of businesses, but single article, this is the items over 1,600 that I was talking about: jewelry, vehicles, pre-written computer software, furniture, um, items. So we're not talking services here. We're talking about tangible personal property that is understood to be a separate unit capable of being sold separately. There is a special way these items are taxed in Tennessee. I'm not going to go into it right now, but if this applies to you, then check out the single article webinar. It is a little bit complex. That's why we're not going to spend much time on it here. Just want to let you know that if you're going to be selling high dollar items, it will pertain to you. If you are not going to be selling high dollar items, just pretend I never said that. You're going to be charging sales tax based on the sales price. And here's just a list of what we consider, how tax law considers and defines sales price. It's the cost of the property sold, the cost of materials used, cost of labor or services involved in it, incoming freight. You can include in there taxes imposed on the seller. All these things you can include in your sales price, and sales tax is based on the sales price. All right, just to touch on exemptions, there's three types. There's usage-based exemptions, product-based, and entity-based. Usage-based exemptions like pollution control, they're always going to be supported by a valid exemption certificate. Now, when I'm talking about exemptions here, I want you to think about it in two different ways. Do these exemptions apply to you as a business? Is your business going to be exempt? Or if you're selling things, if your business sells things, are you going to be selling your products to businesses that are exempt and are going to be providing you with one of these certificates? You need to be aware of that you may get that. If you're selling an item to someone who has a pollution control exemption, they're going to be providing you with that exemption certificate. Earlier, I was talking about items being most tangible personal property is subject to sales tax, right? Well, here's just a few examples of items that are not subject to sales tax: textbook, meals, prescriptions, and certain other healthcare items. For more information about that, you can refer back to our sales tax manual for a full list of which exact products. They're kind of rare, but it's worth checking out. Some entities, based on just the type of entity that they are going to be exempt from sales tax, like certain government entities: U.S. government, state of Tennessee government, local county and city governments. They're going to need an exemption certificate to supply you with that before you can exempt sales tax to them. And just so you know, you're going to need to keep all those certificates. If someone says that they're exempt and you're not going to charge them sales tax, you have to keep up with that certificate in case you ever get audited. In terms of that government exemption, just one thing to note there is that it does not apply to other states coming in and buying things from you in the state, just the state of Tennessee and just our cities and counties here in Tennessee. Another thing about these entity-based exemptions is that you're going to need to make sure that if they give you that exemption certificate and say, hey, I'm exempt, the payment that they make needs to be in the name of the exemption. So if it says Davidson County Government, the payment, the card that's used, or the check that they use to pay for that needs to be in the name of Davidson County Government. If it's a church, so this next item here, nonprofits, if the church is giving you their Tennessee exemption certificate or their 501c3 document to prove that they are exempt, that the payment has to be in the name of that nonprofit entity. So if it's a church giving you a nonprofit exemption certificate to be able to buy something from you, that payment needs to be in the name of the church, not the representative that's there buying it or the pastor or whatnot. There's also an agriculture exemption for qualified farmers. Again, they need to give you, and you need to maintain an exemption certificate there. Same with qualified manufacturers. I'm not going to talk too much about filing of the return here, but exemptions, you're going to just keep track of all those, and they're going to be reported on your Schedule A of your sales tax return. Schedule G is going to be temporary exemptions. Most years, our General Assembly votes to have maybe a weekend where school supplies or school or clothing or computers, there can be times of temporary exemptions. Those are going to be reported on Schedule G, which rolls into Schedule A. Okay, this is something I want to spend a little bit more time on, resale certificates. As I was mentioned earlier, when you open up a sales tax account, you're going to get a resale certificate that you're going to present that certificate to your where you're buying products that you're going to be reselling. You're going to give them a copy of your resale certificate. It's issued by location. So if you have multiple locations, you're going to have multiple resale certificates. You're going to use the resale certificate for each location specifically. They do not expire, but they're no longer valid when a location closes. And just to reiterate here, they can only be used for items intended for resale. I'm going to give you an example here, and pay attention, because if you get audited, you need to make sure you keep this straight. Let's say you're going to a big box store like Costco or Sam's or something like that to buy products. Some of those products you're going to be reselling. And some of those products that you're buying there, maybe you're going to be using, like some cleaning supplies for your store or some shelving or just items that you're going to be using in the operation of your business. You can't use your resale certificate for items you're going to be using. You need to pay sales tax on those. So if you're doing a big shopping trip where you're also going to be buying items that you're going to be reselling or ingredients, let's say, in something, if you're a restaurant for something you're going to be making, you're going to want to separate those out and make two separate purchases to keep it straight. The purchase of items that you're going to be reselling, you can use your resale certificate for that and not pay sales tax, but the items that you're going to be using in the course of your business, you need to pay sales tax on that. You do not want to get into where uh, if you get audited, you're showing that you use your resale certificate to buy items for things you're going to be using. You get in big trouble. We don't want to see that. We do have a webinar dedicated to the topic of resale certificates. And I'm going to reiterate, because I know I've said a lot already, when we were talking about opening up your sales tax account and how when you open it up, you're going to get this resale certificate. If you're doing that several months before you actually start your business, you either need to contact us and let us know that, or you need to go ahead and start filing 0 returns if you're not making sales yet, because our system's not going to know. We're just going to say, oh, they started a business. They have a sales tax account now, and our system's going to be looking for that return. It takes you about 2 seconds to file a 0 return, but it is worth it. You need to do that if you're not making sales, and that goes for any month that you're not making sales. Let's say you got a slow month and it's a very small business. Even if you don't make sales, you still have to file a return for the period that you don't have sales for. Filing of sales tax. So sales tax is due on the 20th day of the month following the period. So sales that I make in January are going to be accounted for on my February sales tax return, on the return due by the 20th of February, I should say. I'm going to reiterate this again, the second bullet here. Once an account is opened, filing must begin even if there are no sales. You have to file 0, or you will end up getting in a bad spot that takes a little bit longer to fix. We can fix it, but and reverse things, but you don't want to get to that point. There is not an option for a filing an extension for sales tax. In very, very rare circumstances like natural disasters, there can be an extension, and our commissioner will announce those when it happens, which unfortunately it does happen sometimes, but for the most part, there is no filing extension. And like I said, the tax accounts are generally set up monthly, but you can request a quarterly or annual filing based on the amount of sales that you have. Just a few resources about filing. We do have a web page about electronic filing using your vendor software. So common now that you're going to have point of sale system, or if you have an online based business, you're going to get a report, right? Well, we accept where you can upload that report and it will pretty much file the return for you. Pretty cool. We have a webinar dedicated to completing the sales tax return. There's a help video link here to filing the sales tax return and more information in our sales tax manual about filing the return. This is something that has been up, we could update at this point, but just some webinars that we have relating to sales tax. There's one relating to special events. We have at this point completed a webinar on marketplace facilitators and sellers. So here you don't see a link to that, but just so you know, over in our webinar video library, you can type in a keyword like marketplace and that webinar will show it for you. E-commerce sales, there's a webinar dedicated to e-commerce. Amusements. Did we do that one, Billy? Or did we end up? Can't even remember. Anyways, if you're a contractor, sales tax for contractors. This is something we need to update because this has changed. If you're selling hemp-derived cannabinoids, ignore this because that is no longer based on a law that passed last year. It's changed. Tobacco taxes, and there's also a webinar dedicated to alcohol taxes. All right, y'all. That is the skinny on sales tax. I'm going to open up the chat for a few minutes to take your sales tax only questions. We're not going to talk about business tax yet. We're not going to talk about F&E tax yet, just sales tax. Throw your questions in the chat to Billy, Dan, and I, and we will do our best to answer those questions. And then after that, I think it'll be a good time to take a quick little break. But
So Katie, you did a great job in going through that. And, like Katie mentioned even earlier in the presentation, when we were looking at that chart of all the taxes that we collect in Tennessee and all that, sales tax is the big bear. This is the big deal. Okay. It's about 60% of what we collect is sales tax. Okay. So we are highly keyed into this. And that sales tax manual that Katie referenced several different times is super important. It's got every detail that you can ever imagine in there. But as you've gone through this and heard what Katie had to say, and if it seems complex to you, guess what? It is. It really is. So it's, to my knowledge, the only law since 1947 when sales tax started, the only law that I know of that has been changed every single year by the Tennessee legislature. So it's continually tweaked and updated. So just always look on our website and in the updated manuals that come out a couple of different times during the year for up-to-date information, because we do keep all that stuff up to date and
yeah.
up to date. Seen some chat things come in here. Let's see. Try to make
Lots of
sure.
question.
Yeah. Let me go back here.
Mine's kind of jumping around a little bit.
Yeah. My business does not sell personal property. Do I file monthly? Well, no, we don't really know that because we're not sure why you're registered for sales tax. If
Right.
you're not selling tangible personal property, it's unlikely that you're providing a taxable service. There are several, like Katie mentioned, that are subject to sales tax. But if you don't need to register for sales tax, we don't want you to register for sales tax. So you can always contact us and we can talk to you more specifically about that too.
So Kristen asked if my sales will not start for a few months, where is the site to file the zero? We're going to get into that later, but it's called TINTAP. And that is the online filing. Online filing is required with very few exceptions. But
And it's really important. What she's bringing up is super
it
important too, because we do
is.
have to have that zero return filed. Otherwise, there'll be an assessment on the account, and we can fix it, but it's a real pain to kind of go through that. So getting that right up front is super important.
I'm going to go over to our website and just show you this because we're going to show it to you later. But tn.gov/revenue, I'm on our homepage here. TINTAP right here, e-file and pay. I'm going to click there. So the first step when you open up a business, you would think that once you register for your business, sales tax, any of your taxes, that this would be automatic, but no, there's another step. You have to then register for a TINTAP account. If you don't already have one, you're going to do it right here where it says new to TINTAP, create a logon. Once you create that logon, You would think you're done, right? Well, no. Then you have to add access to your tax accounts. We have a great webinar dedicated to showing you how to do this. It's called 10 Tap Basics over there in the webinar video library that I showed you a few minutes ago, where we opened up that sales tax basics webinar. Same thing, we've got one for 10 Tap, and it will walk you through how to add access to your tax accounts and then how to do things with them once you're in there. Sounds kind of complicated and lots of steps. Well, it kind of is, but we can help you. We can hold your hand through it, or these resources that we have to show you are great as well, especially 10 Tap Basics. Once you log into 10 Tap and add access to any of the tax accounts you have, for example, your sales tax account, then filing that return is very simple, and the resources show you how to do that, but we're not going to show you that today. We're just going to share the resources that show you. So I'm going to go back to our homepage and show you where that 10 Tap Basics webinar is. I'm on tn.gov/revenue again. Going down into taxpayer education and outreach, that's where the webinars are. Then I'm going to click on tax webinars, and then down to the library again, right? I'm going to type in the word basic. If you're a new business, I think typing in the word basic in the webinar video library search bar is just a good one to go look and see the basics that we have. 10 Tap Basics right here, just to show you. Here's the PDF of it. You can watch the actual webinar, but this is going to walk you through steps. For example, once you get logged in, this walks you through how to log in. I'm just scrolling through it real fast, y'all, not expecting you to catch any of this, but just to show you what all this webinar, this 10 Tap Basics, shows you how to do. So very helpful resource for you there. Okay. Billy, are there any questions in here that you think would apply to the group?
There are a couple. Dawn said that she lives in Claiborne County and she goes to vendor markets in other counties. What sales tax rate do you charge? Normally, you would charge just your own home rate and report all your sales back in there, but there's one exception to that, and that is if that vendor's market is registered with us as a special events location. If that's the case, the operator of the market will distribute you information about how to get with us so that we could register you with a special location ID for only that event. And then you remit your taxes based on that one particular event. We find that that's more rare than it is common. So really, Dawn, that's pretty much how that goes. Essentially, most of the time going back to your home rate and reporting your home rate, unless that operator has registered specially with us.
A question from Tommy here. I was planning to start selling my products, but ended up needing surgeries. Have not been able to do anything other than purchase supplies. Is there any way to change the date for the planned start? Reach out to us. We are going to be sharing later how to reach out to us, but I'll go ahead and tell you 615-253-0600. Definitely call us, because our system, I don't know when you opened up that sales tax account to purchase your supplies or how long it's been, but if you haven't done anything with it, you may have already gotten a letter or might already be in collections, and you need to reach out to us. We can fix that for you, but you just need to definitely reach out to us.
Yes, and we had another question here from another person that had very common question that we get. Do we charge sales tax if you're a gutter installation company, do installations, repairs, cleanouts, etc.? Okay, so essentially, yes, you do have to charge. Well, it depends on what we're doing. Okay, so sales tax on these gutters, when you're actually getting them from the supplier, is going to be charged to you. Okay, and what you're going to be doing is you're going to pay sales tax on those materials. Now, gutters are pretty much installed into real property on a permanent basis. Okay. So what that means is with the customer, you're not going to charge them sales tax on the job. Okay. However, you paid sales tax, obviously, and what you don't want to do is to have to eat that sales tax against your profit. So when you quote the job, you're obviously going to quote a larger amount to help you pay that sales tax that you've already paid. Okay. So sales tax is being paid, but it's not really being paid by the customer, it's being paid by you on the materials. Okay. And the other types of service that you're talking about, if you just went to clean out their gutters, that's not a taxable service, so you're not going to have to charge sales tax on that.
And I'm going to recommend to you, I don't see that question right in front of me right now, but for you to check out the sales tax for contractors webinar. That might be a helpful resource for
Yes,
you.
we do have a good one on that. That's true too. Some of these other questions that we're asking here are very specific.
Here's a good one that I think might apply to a lot of people. What if Dawn asked about selling products to people in another state? Do you charge Tennessee tax or Florida tax? Great question. Okay, we here in Tennessee, you're going to be charging Tennessee sales tax to products that you sell here in this state. But if you are shipping it to another state, there is a line on your sales tax return in Tennessee where you'll be able to exempt out that sale because you're not going to be charging Tennessee sales tax if the customer is receiving it in another state. That's going to be considered sales in interstate commerce. You won't charge Tennessee sales tax. But whether you're liable for collecting sales tax in another state, that's going to depend on so many factors. You're going to have to check out. Depends on a lot of states now, kind of, Billy, don't you think, have this common, like it's about 100,000 in sales, whether you need to charge sales tax. That's become kind of standard.
Some do,
Um,
and then some base it off the number of transactions that you're
right.
doing in the state, different things like that. But we're not going to be able to comment on what other states do or don't do.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't have all the knowledge on that, and really, that's not our job. Not trying to be weird about that, but we just don't know,
You'll need to do
So
your research about where you're
yeah,
selling, what states you're selling into, and whether or not you need to collect. But what we can tell you is that a sale where the customer receives the product in another state is considered a sale in interstate commerce, and there is a line on your sales tax return where you can exempt that out and not have to, you don't collect sales tax on those, for Tennessee sales tax at least, and so you would not be remitting it to us. So
right.
um,
Um, well, another person here has asked if eBay collects a sales tax on items you're selling. Do you still need to file? Well, depends on if that's the only place that you
mhm.
sell things through. If they're collecting sales tax, you wouldn't need to have a sales tax account. But if you're selling otherwise and need to register for sales tax, then you'll need to do that. Now, you don't report the sales that are made through eBay because they are reporting that and remitting tax to us.
Mhm.
So you want to ignore those for the purposes of filing your Tennessee return. Okay. So everything is depending on what you're doing. We can't say that everybody that sells on eBay doesn't need a sales tax account, because what if you sell privately also?
Well, I'm going to piggyback on that too, Billy, and say you may still have a sales tax account because you're wanting to use your resale certificate,
True.
right?
True.
So in that case, yeah, you're going to keep an active sales tax account. 'Cause if you close out that sales tax account, you can't use that resale certificate anymore. So in that case, let's say
Uh-huh.
you only sell through a marketplace seller like eBay or Amazon or something like that, and they're collecting sales tax and they're remitting it over to us. You still need a sales tax account to be able to use that resale certificate, but that's an example where you would be filing zero with us if all your sales were, so that sales tax that's being, let me back up. Sales tax has to be accounted for at some point. If you use a resale certificate to purchase the product, if it's all being sold on a marketplace, they're remitting that sales tax to us, so you would file zero. If, like Billy said, if you're selling some of it, maybe on your own website or to whoever, from like something like Facebook Marketplace, where they're not, Facebook Marketplace doesn't collect sales tax, right? Um, then you would need to report those sales on your return. Only the sales where you're the one collecting the sales tax. I hope I
Right. And
explained
there's
that right.
just to piggyback on what you're saying too there, Katie. for people who are not in business, okay, but just regular folks that really don't have a business that sell things like you mentioned on Facebook Marketplace or other places that people can sell stuff. Those are considered to be casual and isolated sales under Tennessee state law. So what that means is that you as that individual are not required to collect sales tax. For instance, if you had a yard sale and you sold, $2,000 worth of stuff on your driveway one weekend, we're not interested in sales tax on that. That's casual and isolated. But if you have a yard sale every week in front of your house, well, that's sort of like a business, isn't it? Because you're sort of operating on a continual basis. So you need to register and remit sales tax too. Another thing that's sort of interesting about that too is you can't just open a business anywhere you want to in the state of Tennessee. These local ordinances that are out there in different cities and counties do restrict your ability to operate a business, particularly in a residential area. Okay. Has nothing to do with the Tennessee Department of Revenue. So before you start with great big plans and things of that nature, going way back to what Katie mentioned earlier, you really need to be sure that you can do what you're doing in the place that you want to do it. Okay. Um, a lot of the other questions that I see in here, Katie, are very account specific and very niche. So
Yeah, I wanted,
we'll
there's lots
probably
of
want them
questions.
to send us an email or give us a
Yeah.
call on some of these.
I want to refer, I'm seeing lots of questions about computer software and software as a service and specified digital products. I want to
Okay,
refer
yeah,
all of those over to a webinar. We got two webinars, one about specified digital products and another webinar dedicated to computer software.
yeah,
So,
that's outside of what we're doing today here.
yeah,
But we
but
appreciate the question. Let me be real honest with you. You're asking great questions. It's just that that's not what we're here for a new business workshop. But we appreciate it though.
okay, I think now's a good natural point to take about a 5-minute break, y'all, because we're going to totally switch gears when we come back and talk about business tax. At the very end, if there's some time, after we cover everything, we can put some more questions. We can answer some more questions, but we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, about 5 minutes. Let's say let's be back at what do you think, Billy? It's 10:47 Eastern time, 9:47 Central time. Let's come back at 10:55 Eastern, 9:55 Central,
Yep, that sounds pretty
9:55
good.
CST. Be back. Okay, we'll see y'all in just a few minutes.
Thank you guys.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are going to dive right into the next tax type that we're going to talk about, which is business tax. Change hats. We're not talking about sales tax anymore. We're switching gears to business tax, which I already mentioned to you applies to to many businesses, at least that have over 100,000 in annual gross receipts. It renews annually, and I'm sorry, it renews an annual standard business license that's issued by your local clerk. And just very important to note here that a minimal license is required for businesses that gross under 100,000, and that business license is renewable annually directly with your clerk. What is annual? What is taxable? The annual gross receipts. What is the rate? It's location based on your classification and whether you're a retailer or wholesaler. The business pays it annually, due on the 15th day of the fourth month following the fiscal year end. And a special note here, as I mentioned, it closely ties in with the local standard business license. Okay, what does all that mean? We're going to break it all down for you. Again, sharing with you here a link over to the business tax manual, the Business Tax Basics webinar PDF that we're going to walk through here in just a minute. And if business tax does apply to your business, then I do recommend that you check out the hour-long webinar on Business Tax Basics. Maybe even worth it if it doesn't apply to you yet. A lot of new businesses are not going to reach that 100,000 in annual gross sales right off the bat. Um, it's a good problem to have. If you do, that's great. If you exceed that 100K in annual gross sales, fantastic, but it is going to put you on the hook for business tax. But it may be a good idea, even if you don't think that you're going to, just to check out that webinar, because that would be your goal, I'm assuming, for every business would be to gross over 100, right, in time. So we're going to take another little field trip over to our website. I got to close out of some of these tabs that I've got open. Let me just clean things up for a minute here, and then we'll get started again. Have all these little things I have to move. Okay, we are going to go over to tn.gov/revenue, our home page, and I'm going to show you the business tax page. If you recall, to go to all of the general tax pages, we're going to click on taxes. You can do it here on the tile or up here. We'll just click on this one, takes you to the same place. All right, I'm going to show you what these tax pages look like. They're all set up mainly the same. There's going to be, if you're on a computer, it's going to be a menu over on your left. If you're on a mobile device, it's going to look a little bit different. The menu, I believe, is kind of in the top right. There's little lines that take you to this menu. But for business tax, like I said, generally, if you conduct business within any county or incorporated municipality in this state and your business grosses over $100,000 or more, you should register for and remit business tax. On this page here, there is a section for due dates and rates. These are those classifications. We'll talk about those in a minute. Registration and licensing, we're going to talk about that. The different classifications. Don't worry, y'all, we're going to get to all this, but I'm just kind of showing you how this web page is set up. A little bit of information on whether you're a retailer or a wholesaler. Deductions, exemptions, and credits. Not a whole lot of those for business tax. Tax guidance is going to take you over, you can link over to the manual here. And if you remember, you can also get to all the tax manuals by clicking on tax resources and then tax guidance. But under each tax page, you can link directly over to the manual. Some different articles, important notices. This is a city and county business tax dashboard. I'm going to kind of detour over to that for just a minute. Remember, I was telling you earlier that all counties have business tax and licensing, but not all cities do. Most do. This is a dashboard that can take you over. If you're wondering if you need a business license in the city that your business is located in, you can kind of hover over each county in the state. I'm in Hamilton County, so you can see here, let me scroll down a little bit. You can see here, these are the different municipalities that are within Hamilton County. You can see Ridgeside and Walden both do not require, where it says impose business tax, that should probably say impose business tax slash license. If you see that there is no business tax for a municipality or city listed here, that means no business license is required, okay? You can also download a printable version of that right by clicking right here. So if you're wondering if your municipality requires you to have a business license, just check it out here. I think for forms, yeah, business tax is also required to be filed online. Very few people can fill out the paper form, but there that is. So I'm going to take you over to the Business Tax Basics webinar. How do we get there? We go back to the revenues home, tn.gov/revenue. And hopefully you'll start getting the hang of where these things are after I show you a few times. I'm going to scroll down to Taxpayer Education and Outreach. Click on Tax Webinars. I'm going to scroll down to the library. And again, I'm just going to type the word basic in here. It'll bring up all of our basics. If you want to watch the video of it later, you'll click here for the actual video. But we're just going to go over to the Business Tax Basics PDF and kind of fly through it a little bit. Spend a little bit of time here on business tax. So what is business tax? It is a tax on the privilege of doing business by making sales of tangible personal property and services within Tennessee and its jurisdictions. We're going to talk about who's liable for it, how to register, how it ties in with licensing, some exemptions, credits, and deductions, and how to file it. Okay, so who is liable for business tax? You've got to have substantial nexus, be engaged in taxable activities, and have over 100,000 in gross sales attributed to Tennessee customers. What is substantial nexus? You have to be organized or commercially domiciled in Tennessee. So if you are located here, that's that. You've got substantial nexus if you're located in Tennessee. Some of the rest of these bullets here are going to pertain to businesses located outside of Tennessee and whether or not they have nexus here. So if you own or use capital here, have systematic and continuous business activity here, or have what's called a bright line presence. Bright line presence, and again, this is going to apply mostly to businesses located outside of Tennessee. If you are located in Tennessee, you've already reached the first bullet here on this page, right? But for out-of-state businesses, what is bright line presence? Tennessee business receipts exceeding 500K or 25% of your total receipts, average value of real and tangible property owned or rented or used here in Tennessee exceeds the lesser of 50K or 25% of the average value of all of your real and tangible personal property, or a total amount of compensation paid by the business into employees in Tennessee exceeding 50K or 25% of your total compensation. If all of that sounds a little confusing, if you're a business that's located outside of Tennessee, we do have, again, a webinar that focuses in on Nexus. Activity, sale of tangible personal property in Tennessee or delivered into Tennessee, a sale of a service that is delivered into Tennessee, or leasing or renting of tangible personal property located in Tennessee. That gross sales threshold. So if your business has met substantial nexus and is engaged in selling things or services here in Tennessee and has over 100K in gross sales attributed to any county within Tennessee, then you need to register and file for Tennessee business tax. We're going to talk about some exceptions to this here in a minute. But all right, here's a handy little chart here that explains the link between business tax and business licensing. So these are 4 columns: gross sales, the license, the business tax requirement, and how to renew that business license. This first row, the first column is annual gross sales. The first row, if you make under 3,000 annually in gross sales, no business license is required, definitely no business tax, and so with no license, there's nothing to renew, right? If you make between $3,000 and $100,000 in annual gross sales, then you just need a minimal business license from your local county clerk, and then also your city clerk or municipal clerk if you live or if your business is located within a municipality that requires that. No business tax is going to be required on that. If you have a minimal business license, meaning you make between 3 and 100 gross annually, no business tax required, and you'll just renew that minimal business license directly with your clerk. If you have over 100,000 in annual gross sales, you're going to need a standard business license from your clerk, and you're going to be required to uh, file annual business tax. When you file and pay that annual business tax, we let your clerk know that, and then they will issue a renewed standard business license. Okay, so since we're talking to new businesses here, whether you're about to start or you just started, this is a law that changed a few years ago back in 2023. That threshold of needing to file and pay business tax used to be 10,000. Now it's 100, so things have changed. If you're new, we're not going to talk too much about that. I don't want to confuse you with that, but just so you know, that $100,000 threshold for gross sales. If you're new, you may not meet that this year. If you do meet it, filing business tax is a good problem to have because it is a very low rate, but you just need to be aware. If you're not sure if you're going to meet that threshold or not, but you know you need a business license, you know you're going to make over 3,000, you may want to go ahead and just get a minimal business license from your clerk. And then if you end up meeting that threshold, if you just kill it, which I hope and pray that you do, then you can reach out to us and we will switch your filing status over to being required, business tax required. Just side note, our system talks to the city and county clerk's system. So we communicate with them. We know we'll have you in our system if you've got a minimal. So if you reach that threshold before the end of your fiscal year, that 100K in gross sales, reach out to us, say, hey, I reached 100. We'll switch you over, and then you're going to need to file business tax, and then you'll get a standard business license from your clerk. Oops. What am I doing? Oh, I thought I was in the PowerPoint over on WebEx, and I was looking for my little arrow to go forward, but I'm scrolling. Okay, business tax registration. What you see here, number one, like I said, our system talks to the city and county clerk's system. So obtaining a standard business license from your city and county clerk automatically registers you for business tax. This comes as a shock to some people. I used to work in our collections division within Department of Revenue, and so often a business tax account would fall into collections because they weren't aware that getting that standard business license from their clerk's office opened up a business tax account. The clerk is supposed to inform you of that, and additionally, you will receive a letter from us in the mail. You will, that says if you obtain that standard license, it says, hey, you have a business tax account now. But not everybody reads their mail, and sometimes that just all got overlooked, and next thing you knew, someone didn't know that they were supposed to be filing business tax and they ended up in collections. Don't let that happen to you. If you got a standard business license from your clerk's office, just know you're on the hook for business tax. Maybe you didn't need a standard license and got that kind of unintentionally. Maybe you just needed a minimal license because you're going to be making under 100. But you look on your license and it says standard. If you don't think that applies to you, now's the time to reach out to us and let us help you fix that. You can also register a location for a standard business license and for business tax through your TINTAP account. That's going to mainly apply for if you're adding locations, if you're already existing. I'll just say this, if that's the case for you, if you already have a business and you're just adding another location, you can do that on TINTAP, but you will have to then go and purchase a license, an initial license from your clerk as well. I already showed you this dashboard of which cities require business license. I showed you that from over on the tax page, but there's a link to it as well. So just a quick overview of business tax. You've got gross sales. You're going to start with gross sales. What is gross sales? That is all sales derived from products or services without any deductions yet. People will say, well, I didn't make 100,000. Well, we're just talking about gross receipts or gross sales here. Um, no deductions for what you paid your employees or your rent for your space, or no deductions for what you spent on products that you're selling. We're talking gross receipts here, okay? Gross sales. Then that's going to be multiplied by a rate, which is determined by what classification you are. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. And whether or not your sales for that tax year were mainly retail sales or mainly wholesale sales. That's not something you can determine until at the end of your year. Retail sales are going to be 50% or more of your sales were to the general public, basically. If 50% or more of your sales were to other retailers, people using their resale certificate, for example, or that's going to be considered wholesale sales, and you will check that box when you go to file business tax annually that 50% or more were wholesale sales. You can then subtract out. Deductions are going to reduce tax liability, and there are some deductions. Credits are going to offset your tax liability. There's not a lot of deductions and credits for business tax. I will go ahead and tell you that. It is due on the 15th day of the 4th month following your fiscal year end. The tax rates, like I said, are super low. You see here, this is just a screenshot of the different classifications that we have and what the retailer rate and what the wholesaler rate is. Very low. All right, choosing your classification. When you go to, if you start this process by obtaining a standard business license from your county clerk's office or your city clerk's office, they're going to help you choose what classification you are based on what you put on your application is what it is you're going to be doing. Classification is going to be based on dominant business activity. So what are most of your sales in? Just to touch through a few of these things, class 1 is going to have 5 different subparts. 1A, there's your grocery stores. 1B, lumber, building materials. 1C, maybe that's a co-op, hay, grain, feed. Gas at retail, gas at wholesale. All right. Class 2, our law very specifically lists certain items of tangible personal property as being in class 2. Kind of some high dollar things like motor vehicles, clothing stores, home furnishings, prescriptions, sales of prescriptions, prepared food. That would be grocery stores, not food for consumption at home. That's over there on 1A, prepared food. I'm not going to list all these, y'all, but you can see class 2 has some very specific tangible items of tangible personal property that the TCA lists. Class 3 has some other very specific items of tangible personal property. Class 2, if you're selling an item of tangible personal property and you don't see it listed here anywhere, basically under 2 or 3, if you don't see whatever it is you're selling specifically, then you're going to be class 2, because class 2 is the catch-all for TPP that's not specifically listed anywhere else. All right. Class 3 is your services. If you provide a service, you're going to be class 3. There are some exempt services. We're going to go over that in just a minute, but most are not. Most service-related businesses are subject to needing a business license, and then if over 100K, paying business tax. Class 4 is mainly contractors that construct or improve real property or install tangible personal property. It also includes extermination services and selling or receiving commissions from livestock or farm products. Class 5, very rare here, industrial loan and natural gas marketers. Not even going to spend time on that. But again, your classification is going to be based on what your dominant business activity is. And your classification is going to determine what rate you pay. You can see now here, this will make a little more sense. All the class 1s, the retail rate and the wholesaler rate, class 2, class 3. There's not a retailer or wholesaler rate for contractors, obviously, or the industrial loan and thrift, or those class 5. What services are exempt from business tax and licensing? So the sales of all services are subject to business tax unless very specifically exempt. And we're going to list out here, these bullets are going to show you the exempt services. So if exempt, then no business license is needed, no business tax is due, unless a business that provides these services also sells a tangible personal property. So I'm not going to read out everything on this list. You can kind of scan it to see if it applies to you. But example of a service related business on this list that might sell an item of tangible personal property that would be subject to business tax and licensing would be, like, let's say maybe a veterinary service. The vet that I used to go to had a little shop in the lobby that sold toys and leashes and pet food and things like that, pet toys. Those things are not services. Those are things. Those are tangible personal property. So if they sold between $3 and $100,000 worth of those things, tangible personal property items, then they would need to get a minimal business license. If they sold over 100 in the tangible personal property items, over 100K annually, they would need a standard business license and therefore would be subject to business tax on the items subject to tax. These services you see here are these services not subject to business tax and business licensing. There are a few entities that are excluded from needing a business license and business tax. One is manufacturers. To qualify for the business tax exemption for manufacturers, you also have to have an industrial machinery exemption for sales tax. Trucking companies offering services to the public or common carriers are excluded from business tax and licensing. If you operate a vending machine and you pay what's called the gross receipts tax, which is just a whole nother thing that we're not talking about today, then you won't owe business tax. For vending machine operators, it's kind of either gross receipts tax or business tax. Newspaper route carriers and peddlers, institutions operating for religious or charitable purposes with respect to profits that are earned from the sale of contributed items. If you're a nonprofit that is selling items that are not donated and you sell between $3 and $100,000 worth annually, then you'll still need a minimal license, even if you're a nonprofit. If you sell over 100,000 annually and you're a nonprofit in taxable items, then you would need a standard business license and would be subject to business tax. So usually nonprofits are not. 501c3 or 4 entities whose taxable activity is conducted at the Tennessee State Fair or at only one county fair. Sales of or rental of real property that belongs to them are excluded from business tax unless it's a short-term rental. So like if you have an Airbnb, that kind of thing, you will be subject to business tax. But if you just have if you own a property that you lease long-term to someone, that's not subject to business tax. Radio, TV stations, publishers, and printers of newspapers. We're going to talk for just a minute about deductions here, but not really very long because we don't have a lot of time today. I will tell you that earlier, about a year ago, I think it was in March of 25, we did a whole webinar dedicated to business tax deductions. It's good for you if business tax if is going to apply to your business for you to understand what you would be able to deduct on your business tax return. Deductions differ from exemption in that they must be reflected on that business tax return. So you're going to put your gross receipts over on line 1 of your business tax return, and then there's another place in the return where you can deduct out certain things. So what are those things? Sales of services received by someone located in another state. If you're a service provider and you're providing a service to someone who lives, I'm located in Hamilton County. We're right on the line for Georgia and Alabama, right? Some service providers here in this county are probably going to be going over into Georgia or Alabama and providing services. They can deduct that out on their business tax return. Returned merchandise when the sales price is refunded. Sales of tangible personal property in interstate commerce. We talked about that a few minutes ago when we were talking about sales tax. I hate to bring up a whole nother tax while we're talking about this, but it's the same concept. When the customer receives the product at their location in another state, it's considered interstate commerce. Now, let's say you have a store here or some kind of location here where the person that lives in another state comes here and walks away from you with that product here in Tennessee, that's not interstate commerce. Even though they live in another state, those sales are still subject to business tax, but only if they take possession of the item in another state is it deductible. Cash discounts, repossessions, amounts allowed as trade-in, and bad debts written off during the reporting period. This is a big one if you are a class 4 contractor doing improvements to either building on real property or doing improvements on real property. You can deduct payments that you make to subcontractors, but you need to make sure you keep track of their business license or contractor's license number, because that's part of a schedule that you will file when you go file your business tax return. There are miscellaneous and federal, state, and excise taxes that you can deduct as well. I'm going to just touch on real quick, 'cause this is fresh on my mind because our webinar that we did last week was books, records, and statute of limitations. So I want to touch on this here. It is important to maintain records for all deductions taken in case you get audited. If you are taking a deduction, you have to have proof of why. As I mentioned, filing business tax, it is due on the 15th day of the 4th month following your fiscal year end. So for a 12/31 fiscal year end, which is most common, you see this little timeline down here. The 15th day of the 4th month looks a lot like April 15th, which is what we think of as tax day, right? Important to note here, your business license is not going to expire for 30 days. Just because you look at your business license and it says expires on May 15th, that doesn't mean you have until May 15th to file your business tax. You can file your business tax return on May 15th, but it's going to be late. You're going to owe penalty and interest. Just like with sales tax, there is no option for a filing extension with business tax, except for in rare circumstances like natural disasters. We are not going to spend time today for purpose of not having enough time to do it, but on filing the business tax return. But this is here. We have a whole webinar dedicated to filing the business tax return, and we touch on the basics of filing the business tax return in this business tax basics webinar. Okay. Okay. That is going to bring us to a stopping point with business tax, and I'm going to open up the chat for you to ask your questions now.
Katie, could you repeat all of what you just said, please?
These people are so sick of hearing my voice. I know. And no, I will not. I'm going to let you answer all the questions about it. Just kidding.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Um,
Okay.
what do we got here?
All right. Let me go back here. When the questions come in, boy, do they come in, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, let's see. Where's a good place to start?
Here's one.
Go for it.
Okay. Oh gosh, it keeps jumping. Tabby says, do we need a business license in each city where we service? This is the gutter company again. Okay, this is a really good question. Yes, because you are a class 4 contractor. You're installing property or doing improvements to real property because you're a gutter company, right? Contractors are the only exception. Contractors do need a license where they do business. Whether you need a
with a little asterisk on them.
with an asterisk, yeah, you may not
Where
need.
they do $100,000
Yes.
or more of gross
Right.
income in that jurisdiction, that city or that county.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it goes back to the home location. Okay. So, but you know, in contracting, that's pretty easy to do. You know, you
Mhm.
do several jobs and in a continual basis there, you'll probably get to that threshold. But
Right. And we have a
contractors are a
webinar.
bear anyway for business
Yes.
tax because um, you're continually operating in different areas. A lot of contractors will keep many of their city and county locations open on our 10 tab system and file appropriately. Maybe even zero, you know, for a couple of those locations, put everything back on their other ones if they didn't reach the 100,000, but they don't choose to close out the location IDs. That's okay to do, but it might charge you a minimum tax. The system will sometimes do that.
Mhm.
A lot of contractors are like, I just don't want to chase this thing forever and ever, so I'm just going to keep it open. So
And
anyway,
hey, there's a webinar. I always joke, I need a little button that says we have a webinar for that. We do have a webinar specifically dedicated to business tax for contractors because it is kind of a whole different beast. But to go back to that question, other than class 4 contractors possibly needing to get licenses in other areas where they work, most businesses do not need one. If you are a interior designer and you do business all over the state of Tennessee, you still only need a business license and pay business tax where you're located. If you fix computers, if other services, if you're doing business all over the state or you're selling things all over the state, no, you just need a business license, and all those gross receipts are sourced to where you are physically located.
here's a question that Mark had. A company that's an electrical engineering consulting firm registered with us. They're from North Carolina, and they registered with us for franchise and excise and business tax and want to know about the business license. This is an easy one, Mark. There's not one because you don't have a Tennessee location. As the Tennessee, not having a Tennessee location means there's no business license. However, if you have registered with us and you're over $100,000 and you do have presence in Tennessee because you're doing business here, you may be subject to the business tax. But for out of state businesses, there's no license because there's no location in Tennessee. Okay. So that license part of that is cut off where the tax is. I would encourage you to be careful to, if you don't meet the $100,000 threshold or any of the other nexus rules for business tax, to consider whether or not you actually need that registration or not. Okay. So just keep that in mind, and reach out to us by email or whatever if you need to with some more details, and we'll help you figure that one out. That's a great question though. What else we got here? Let's see.
There's one I want to partly answer right now, but not all the way. Anthony asks, my new LLC had zero revenue in 2025. Can you confirm what tax returns I need to file? That's a good question, but it's also a loaded one. We're going to
Yes.
talk about F&E tax next, okay? If you're an LLC, you have to file F&E no matter what. There's a minimum there, which you will, with zero revenue, you qualify for. But we're not talking about F&E right now. We've already talked about sales tax, and we're talking about business tax now. So you've asked, it's a new LLC, you had zero revenue in 2025. Can you confirm what tax returns I need to file? Sales tax, well, if you opened up a sales tax account, maybe to use your resale certificate, but you didn't have any sales, you would still need to file a zero return for periods where you had an open sales tax account. Check that out. I can't, I don't, you'll have to look and see if you have a sales tax account, or you may already know.
What if you sell liquor by the drink? What if you're a restaurant?
We're not talking about
Yeah,
that right now, Billy. We are
I
going to talk
know.
about it.
But
We
the
are
thing is,
going to.
it's like you're saying, Katie, it's
Yeah,
Pandora's
it
box
is.
because we
But
can't just give you a
right.
here ABC 1 2 3 answer. There's not one.
But with
It
regard to business
depends.
tax, I do have an answer for you. You had zero revenue in 2025. What I want you to do, Anthony, or if this applies to you, make sure, look at your business license if you got one. And if it says minimal business license on there, you don't owe business tax. You just go renew that business license with your local clerk. If it says
Hmm.
standard business license, but you had zero revenue, you need to call us because we can switch you over to filing not required and switch you over to a minimal license. You probably should have gotten one. That's if it says standard. Look at your business license. If you have a standard business license and you made under 100, call us. We'll switch your filing status to not required, and then you'll just renew a minimal business license with your clerk.
There's a really good time to look at this stuff too,
Now,
and it's now. Right. Thank you, Katie. Uh, because boy, do we get a lot of calls on April 15th. You
yeah.
know, hey, I need to change this. Do you? Yeah, you do. But the thing is, so do the other 2 or 3 thousand people that are trying to find us on the last possible moment. Okay. Please don't be that guy. Please let us help you sooner than later so that we can get everything all lined up nice and neat. And then you'll be ready to go too. Also, one other quick thing on business licensing for the county clerks and the city clerks. When you renew that minimal activity license, there is a fee. It's $15 for each renewal. Okay. It's due by May 15th. Okay. If you're a December year filer. Okay. Which most of you are. All right. So make sure that you come in sometime between now and May 15th and give them their fee and let them renew your license if you're minimal. Okay. That's really important. And again, sooner is better than later, to go ahead and knock that out. It also avoids you standing in long lines, getting busy signals on phones and clerk offices and stuff like that. So you don't want to do that. You want to make it as easy on you as possible.
I'm going to answer one more question here before we move on, just for sake of time, because I think it kind of brings in a few things we've talked about past few minutes. Deborah says, I'm in South Carolina and we sell wholesale e-cigs. Just to confirm, we file business tax class 3 and the 100K total is Tennessee sales. Okay, you're located out of state and you sell something into Tennessee. You are not required to have a business license because you don't have a physical presence here. So we're just talking about business tax now for an out-of-state business. Yes, you're right. You have to have 100K in total sales to Tennessee customers in order. That's one of those checks to boxes to check off that would require you to have business tax is over 100,000 in sales to Tennessee customers. All right.
Right.
You've only got an hour left, so.
Katie, I know you're
Yeah.
going to move on to F&E, but just
Okay.
real quick, I'm just scanning through a lot of these other questions. Guys, y'all are asking excellent questions. Great, great questions. We just don't have time to answer them all. And I really do apologize for that. I know Katie and I would like to be able to address all of these, and maybe we can circle back to some. But we just want you to know to send us that email or to reach out to us by phone, and we'll give you that contact information
Yep.
again here in a little bit. We're not going to ignore your question. You're going to get an answer. It's just that maybe we just need you to type it out for us. But we're not going to leave you hanging. I promise. Okay.
Sometimes I do wish this workshop was a full day long when we could have like an
Oh,
hour.
like you said early on, Katie, we could be here like
Yeah.
all night too.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
nobody wants that.
But I'm glad you're here, and we are going to be providing you with, hopefully this will give you an overview of everything, and really honestly, it should be, everything we're telling you right now should be prompting a lot more questions on your part. That's good, and we're going to we're going to share with you how to reach out to us with those
Right,
questions.
and we do work basically. Somebody asked in the chat here, what are your hours? Typically 8 to 4 Central is 8 to 4:30, excuse me, Central, Monday through Friday, no holidays is the core time. And crazy people like me might be looking at it at other times, but not too often,
Get
But
a
anyway,
life, Billy, get a life.
I don't have a life. I work. Yeah, just saying.
Okay.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna mute out.
Okay, we're going to go through really quickly the basics of F&E. It applies to businesses who are required to register with the Tennessee Secretary of State. That includes corporations and LLCs. If you are a sole proprietor, you will not owe F&E tax. Okay. What is it? What is taxable? Franchise, it's a combination of franchise and excise. Franchise is your net worth. Excise is your net earnings or loss. Hopefully not, but or losses. The rate for franchise, it's 25 cents per $100 of net worth. For excise, it's 6.5% of your net earnings. Who pays it? You do, the business. The filing, it is an annual requirement that is due on the 15th day of the 4th month following your fiscal year end, just like business tax. So for a 12/31 fiscal year business, that's April 15th, right? Except, unlike the other tax types that we have, you can file for an extension to file, not to pay, but to file. If you make a certain amount past couple years, if you've have a certain amount of tax liability over the past couple years, you will have to make estimated payments too. But if you're a new business, probably doesn't apply to you yet, but just we're going to break that down for you. I will say that the F&E return does tie very closely into your IRS, your federal return. Not exactly, but very closely into your federal return. So if you have, let's say, a CPA or accountant file your federal business taxes, they'll probably do your F&E too. So just like with business tax and sales tax, we do have an F&E manual. And I am going to walk you through a little bit of the F&E Tax Basics webinar PDF, but there's also a video about it. I think that maybe y'all are probably getting pretty familiar with where I'm going on the website here. This is tn.gov/revenue. I'm not going to go show you the tax page or the manual. You know where to go for that. The tax pages are here. The manuals are under tax resources and tax guidance, but we're going to go over to the webinar. Taxpayer education and outreach. Then I'm going to click on tax webinars and scroll on down to the library. What am I going to do, y'all? I know you can't talk right now to me, but type in basic. That's where our basic stuff is. Here's the video of the basic F&E basics webinar, and here is the PDF of it. That's what we're going to scroll through for just a few minutes here. We've still got to talk about TIN-TAP in the next 55 minutes, including a little bit of time to answer your questions about F&E. So we're not going to spend too much time on this. The excise tax and franchise tax are imposed on corporations and most limited liability companies for the privilege of doing business in Tennessee. You know where the manuals are. All right, what is F&E? This changed a couple years ago on January 1, 24, it changed, but franchise tax used to be computed on the greater of net worth or the amount of real or tangible property that's owned or used in this state. Forget about that part right here, because moving forward, since you're a new business, franchise tax is really just based on and computed based on your company's net worth. Excise tax is computed based on your net income or loss. All right, who is subject to F&E? Corporations, including S-Corps, LLCs, limited partnerships, general partnerships or not, real estate investment trusts and business trusts. Entities not subject to F&E, sole proprietors and general partnerships. So if you are a sole proprietor or a general partnership, tune me out for the next few minutes unless you want to get kind of confused, or unless you're just interested in hearing about this in case you want to maybe consider changing your entity type in the future.
Hey, Katie, just something real
Yes.
quick.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier, I think by mistake, that limited partnerships were not subject to F&E, and that's wrong. This slide is correct. And I think I just said that wrong. When I saw that, I'm like, wait a minute, I think I said that incorrect. So I just
Okay.
wanted to point that
I
out.
thought you were
Yeah.
saying general partnerships or
Yeah.
not.
Well, I did say
Maybe.
general, but then I
Okay.
mistakenly mentioned limited, and that was wrong. So
Okay.
thank you. I just wanted to point that out to everybody.
Thank you. Exempt from F&E. Let me kind of get this a little smaller here. You can see here, these are the entities that are exempt from F&E. For the ones that are in this yellow box, an application for exemption is required. And you have to renew that yearly. Nexus for out-of-state entities for F&E is kind of similar to business tax. We're not going to spend time on that right now. Filing of F&E. Okay, so I told you that it's due on April 15th or the 15th day of the fourth month following the end of a fiscal year. This timeline you see here is going to assume a 12/31 or a calendar fiscal year end. You can see here by April 15th or the 15th day of the fourth month, you need to either file your return and pay your return, file and pay for an extension, or file and pay that $100 minimum. I think Anthony was who had the question about, hey, I didn't have any, I'm an LLC, but I didn't do anything in 2025. You will still owe that minimum. You always owe the minimum at least if you are, until you have officially dissolved with the Secretary of State. If you get an extension, it's a 7-month extension. That's new as of the past few years ago. So you've got until November 15th to file the return. More on this later. After you've been established for a while, you may owe estimated payments 4 times a year. We're going to talk about that here in a minute too. Okay, as I mentioned, you have a 7-month extension that can be granted if payments are made by the due date that equal either 90% of the current period's liability, 100% of the previous period's liability, or $100 if the previous period does not exist, just $100. You have to pay those amounts by the deadline to be able to be granted a 7-month extension. Once that financial requirement is met, once you've paid that, the extension is granted, and then you have until 7 months after that, so November 15th, to file the return. Estimated payments. After you've been established for a while, if you have a combined F&E tax liability of $5,000 or more for both the prior tax period and the current one, you're going to be on the hook for making 4 payments throughout the year. The first one, it's kind of easier. You can look at this little chart, or I can show you again on this little chart when they're due. They're not quite quarterly because you've got a little shorter period here, but very important because you will get penalized if you don't make those estimated payments. Penalty and interest. All right. You have to have a valid extension and timely filing. If you have a valid extension, you will have no penalty due, but when you go to file in November or sometime before November 15th, you would still owe interest if what you paid in order to get the extension was not enough to meet the tax liability that you owe. You might still owe a little bit of interest, but no penalty. If there's an invalid extension or the return is not filed by the extension date, penalty and interest will both be due, and they will begin accruing on the date that the return was originally due. Delinquency, this goes for all of our taxes actually. It's 5% per month, based at a maximum of 25%, and there's a minimum penalty of $15 on any late filed return. The interest rate changes annually, and I never can remember what it currently is. Billy or Dan, if y'all know, feel free to share.
I'll look it up and then get back with you here.
Those estimated payments I was telling you about, those quarterly or kind of quarterly estimated payments that you owe if you have prior liability equaling 5,000 for prior year and current year. If you don't make those on time, those estimated payments, the penalty is assessed at 2% per month up to 24% in interest calculated at the current rate. Those exemptions, I said there were some entities that were exempt from F&E that needed to apply for that exemption and then renew that exemption every year. If you have a late exemption renewal, it's a flat $200. Penalty, we can waive a penalty upon your request. Link here to how to request a penalty waiver. We also had a webinar dedicated to penalty waivers and refund requests just a couple months ago. But FYI, interest cannot be removed. By law, we cannot remove interest. Okay, this minimum F&E filing. So if you begin operations or registered with the Secretary of State, but have no income, your business is inactive basically, or no income, no assets, you can file a minimum return. It's really easy. You go to TINTAP, so from tn.gov/revenue, you click on TINTAP, and then click on view return links, and then file a minimum F&E return, and then it's going to ask you for a little bit of information. You're going to need your F&E account number, your EIN number. I think that's it. And then you will pay that minimum $100. It's very easy, but if you don't do that by the deadline, so for a business whose fiscal year is a calendar year, fiscal year end, December 31st fiscal year end, if you don't do that by April 15th, you're going to have penalty. You don't want that, and interest. This is what we're not going to get into right now, is computation of the tax, all this stuff. We don't need to talk about that right now, do we, Billy? Okay, that was
No,
F&E
you're
in
good.
that was F&E in a nutshell. I'm going to move along to saying and telling you that we do have lots of other tax accounts. Most don't apply to most businesses. Some other major ones that might apply to you are liquor by the drink, tire fee, motor fuel, tobacco taxes. There is a web page for each of these tax types. You click on the taxes tile over there on from our homepage. We have a tax manual for just about every tax type, and we have webinars dedicated to it. I think at this point, most every tax type, we have a webinar dedicated to it, and help articles. But what I want to do now before moving on is just to ask, and I want you to give me some kind of reaction. There's a little reactions thing there at the bottom. Is there anybody in here that's with us today that is going to be selling liquor by the drink on premise? Just show me a reaction, anything if you are. I'm seeing thumbs down reactions, thumbs down, thumbs down. Okay, let's skip over this. I just have a little bit of information about liquor by the drink here. Okay, so I'm going to skip this. If you ever do decide to sell liquor by the drink, we have a webinar, we have an alcohol manual. There's taxes involved and licenses and lots of stuff. So just some general tax account information here. We talked a little bit about delinquencies with regards to F&E, but really delinquencies can happen with any tax account. Penalties and interest apply to any deficient or delinquent payments and filings. The penalty of 5% of the unpaid amount is added for each month up to a maximum of 25%, and interest computed at the current rate of interest. Again, penalty, you can request a penalty waiver, but interest cannot be waived. Now, the not fun thing that I just have to talk about that you need to be aware of is that collections will be made on any taxes not filed or paid. When I say not filed, for those accounts where you didn't realize you needed to be filing, but you should have been filing, you may get a letter from our collections division, and you're going to have to fix it because not dealing with collections can lead to getting levies and liens, and you don't want it to come to that. There is a webinar that I want to implore all of you as a new business to take the time to check out, and it's called Tax Compliance and the Collections Process. If anything, it's going to show you what you need to do to remain in compliance, and then what you need to do and how to deal with it if you get a letter in the mail from us saying that it would start with the first letter would be called a notice of proposed assessment. The next letter would be a final demand for payment, and then you're going to get into this collections process. You're going to get calls from us, eventually ending in levy and lien, and you just don't want it to come to that. So protect yourself. Check out this webinar, and do not ever ignore letters from us. If you get a letter from us that says notice of proposed assessment, you think, I'm just going to ignore this. I haven't even started my business yet. Why are they saying I owe something? Well, it could be there was an issue with getting you set up properly, and it needs to be fixed before you end up getting in collections and going down that whole slippery slope. So check out this webinar, Tax Compliance and the Collections Process. Also, just want to quickly touch on this. We're talking to new businesses here, and I know you don't want to think about your business closing, but just so you know, when the time comes for you to close your business, hopefully it will be after a long, fruitful business, and it will be time to retire on a beach somewhere. But when that time comes, you need to close your business out properly. One of the main reasons a business ends up in collections is not closing out properly. Recently, we had a webinar dedicated to this, so just keep that on your back burner, that you will need to make sure you close out. You'll need to file a final return, make sure everything is good to go for each tax account you have, and we have a webinar dedicated to that. So I'm going to move along here to talking about TINTAP, and then I hope to be able to have a little bit of time at the end to answer your questions about all of this. Give me a thumbs up if you're sick of hearing my voice. Let me see. Oh, I love y'all. Nobody's giving
I'm
me.
not sure if I can do that or not, but I am. Just saying.
Okay. All right. Well, if you are, sorry. Okay. Navigating to TINTAP. You navigate to TINTAP from our homepage, tn.gov/revenue, and click on TINTAP. We're going to go over there in a minute. What is TINTAP? Basically, it is just an online tax account reference for you. Tennessee Taxpayer Access Point, I think is what it stands for. TINTAP. We do what you see in this gray circle here. We recommend that all taxpayers have access on TINTAP, have master level access to all of their tax accounts. I know some of y'all don't even want to think about tax accounts. It's worth it to you just to pay somebody to handle it all, and I don't blame you. Even if that's the case and somebody else is filing everything, you still need access to it. You still need to be able to go look. See, hopefully you have a wonderful CPA or accountant and they take care of everything, but you need to be able to see that it is getting taken care of, right? At a glance in your TINTAP account, you want to see that everything's in the green and that nothing's in the red, right? Or that there's no big alerts like, oh, we're missing this from you. Or maybe you think you and your tax preparer, tax professional, third party help, or maybe you think y'all are on the same page, but they think they're just filing your F&E return. They think you're filing your business tax return. Well, better for you to see that quickly on TINTAP that maybe something's lacking or you're missing a return somewhere quickly rather than a couple years down the road or till you've got a lien on your property or something, right? So all that to say, if you are a business owner, take ownership and have master level access to all of your tax accounts and check it out periodically. Log in and make sure everything looks right. Okay. What can you do on TINTAP? You can register for accounts, electronic filing for all tax accounts. You can schedule payments in advance. Some people like to take advantage of that feature. This is really cool too, from big improvement over back in the days when it was paper returns. The electronic filing, it'll automatically tell you if there's an error. Just like anytime you're filling out a form online and you see the little red asterisk or red something that says this is a required thing, and then you try to move on and it won't let you. It's going to say, hey, you need to complete this or you did this wrong. TINTAP is the same way. You can't even proceed and submit unless it's all done correctly. So that's pretty cool. You can go in and amend returns, access old returns, get your certificates, like copy of your resale certificate, especially for you new businesses. Sometimes older businesses, things didn't migrate over when we switched over to TINTAP, but y'all are all new businesses, so that's cool. You can access your resale certificate. For most of you, not all, but for many or most of you, you can access your business license on TINTAP. Not all jurisdictions participate in sending their business licenses through to our system, but most do. Important to note, not Davidson and not Shelby at this point, but those are two big ones that don't, but most do. I keep talking about revenue help, and I'm going to take you over there at some point. Hopefully I have time. But there is a great, very robust, very helpful help section dedicated to TINTAP. All of our tax types have help sections about them, but this is the best place to go for TINTAP help. Each one of these, like this is just the basics right here. How-to videos. What is TINTAP? Help logging in, help registering, help with payments, help with filing the return. Under each one of those headings, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of articles about TINTAP help. And we're always here to help you too. There is this little TINTAP assistant. Once you get into TINTAP, it's a bot. And sometimes those can be kind of annoying as someone who loves to do online chat. We don't have online chat available yet, but these bots sometimes annoy me, but I think TINTAP Assistant is kind of a good one. I will say it searches our whole database and is pretty intuitive in terms of AI for finding the answer for you. But if it doesn't, here's what's really cool. If you need to zoom in to see this here, if it didn't find your answer or answer that you like, you can right there click send a message, and that opens up a ticket for us on our end. It automatically sends a message to us in writing. We have a great team of people that answers those tickets quickly, and I think that's one of the coolest features about the TINTAP Assistant, which is a bot but helps you find your answers pretty well. Once you are logged into TinTap, this is just a little bit of a tour of what it's going to look like once you get logged in. This is after you've created your login, and this particular one that you're seeing here has already added access. This Jim Jones Corp has already added access to some tax accounts. You see a business tax account here, franchise and excise tax account. Here's TinTap Home. I'm just going to kind of give you a little quick tour of TinTap. There's TinTap Home. Manage My Profile is where you will do certain functions, and that TinTap Basics webinar walks you through each of these in great detail. But under Manage My Profile, that's where you can set up things like your bank account payment options, how to get in touch with you, your main addresses, and who has under Manage My Profile. That's where you can manage who has access to your account, that kind of stuff. There's also, these are kind of tabs, even though they don't look like physical tabs. You can add favorites. This summary page is what we're on right now. This is where you're going to see all of your tax accounts. There's an action center. Again, as the business owner, you want to know, are there any actions? Is there anything that I need to do? If you see a little superscript listed by the Action Center, there's something important we want you to know. So yes, check that out. We're going to break these down a little bit further in a minute. But here we are on the summary page. Out next to your tax account, you see this is the business tax account. This is good. You see green 0. If you see green, that means you either have 0 balance or you have a credit. If you see anything red there, if that number is red, there is a balance, a negative balance on that account, and you don't want it to hang out in that status very long, or else, again, you will end up in collections. Next to each tax account, there are options to do various things. You can make a payment, you can view and file returns. If there was a return that was needed right now, you would see that available just right below this. It would say, hey, you need to file. Also, out to the right, you will see where it says additional actions. I think I break that down a little bit more. Sorry. I do not. Additional actions, like for business tax, that's where you would see a copy of your business license if your license is with a jurisdiction that participates in that. That's where you can request a penalty waiver or request a refund if you've got a credit balance. Okay, that action center with the little, if you see something with a superscript here, you can see this business has some unread messages from us. Don't always open up our mail and always open up our emails, and don't ignore the messages. If there is a balance due, you're going to see that on the Action Center. If there's a return that needs to be filed, you're going to see that on the Action Center. So if, let's just say, for example, that you're a business that doesn't want to deal with any of this, and it's worth it to you to pay someone to handle all of this, you're still going to want to log into TinTap and just check out that Action Center. If you see that things need to be done, hey, maybe reach out to your CPA and say, do you know why it's saying I've got a late return, or why I have a balance, or see if they can help you with that, or reach out to us directly. Reach out to the Department of Revenue, and we'll explain it to you and we'll help you. Just don't ignore the action items. Under the More tab, this is where you can, this is where you're going to go when you first log into TinTap and don't have access to anything yet. You're going to, under More and Manage Accounts, this is where you're going to gain access to your accounts. When it's time to gain access to those accounts, here's what you're going to need. You're going to need your entity ID number. So if you're a sole prop, that's going to be your social. If you're an LLC or a now this is for if you've already registered for the accounts, okay, or already gotten your license. You'll gain access to those accounts by providing your entity ID number, your tax account number, and what's called a letter ID. Here's why I'm mentioning that. When you get a letter from us, so you've gotten your standard business license from the county clerk's office. You remember I told you you're going to get a letter from us? Save that letter, because that's going to have your business tax account number on it, and it's going to have what's called a letter ID. Those are important pieces of information that are going to help you gain access to that account on TinTap. Let's say you registered for a sales tax account with us. You're going to get a letter in the mail. It's the first thing you're going to get, I think, is called a certificate of registration. You're also going to get your resale certificate. Both of those would count as both of those are going to have a letter ID on there and going to have your sales tax account number. Both of those are going to be needed, the sales tax account number and the letter ID, in order to gain access to the account. If you do not have those letters, or let's say you threw them away thinking you didn't need them, shredded them, whatever, you can also call us, and once we verify your identity and verify that you are who you say you are and that you are an authorized representative or the business owner, we can give you that information in order to set yourself up and gain access to your accounts on TINTAP. Okay. Yeah, so that's the most important thing I want to touch on there. The help articles and the webinar video library, I'm going to go back over to our website and just reiterate where some of these resources are on our website real quick, because if you're like me, you want to find your own answers. I like to kind of see if what I need I can find somewhere before having to call anybody, especially since we don't have online chat yet. That's my favorite way to get information, but we don't have that. If you don't want to, you're welcome to call us. We welcome you to call us, and we welcome you to email us or submit a ticket on TINTAP. But if you want to find your own, I'm just going to review all the different places where you may be able to find an answer to your question, all the different resources. So here's a review: tn.gov/revenue, our homepage. All right. I showed you where all the taxes have their tax pages. It's either here or here, taxes, and when you click there, you can click on the tax types. If you think one of these other tax types might be relevant to your business, just check that out. When you're on a tax page, you're going to see a menu that gives you a little bit more information. You got more questions about exemptions, certificates. This is just going to be the basics right here. If you're a marketplace seller, this is a great page right here, though. Great page if you're a marketplace seller. But down under tax guidance, on each tax page, it's going to link over to our manual. Here, question number 1 on your quiz here: what's the other way you can get to the tax manuals? I will tell you, tax resources, and then click tax guidance. That also takes you to your manuals. The manual is going to be where you're going to find almost everything. And in case you didn't know this, once you're in a PDF or on any web page, you can click Control F and type in, like, Control F searches it. I'm going to type in contractor. You can see here, this manual has 141 instances of the word contractor, 141. So you can kind of, here's a section about contractor use tax. So if you wanted to just search through whatever question you have about whatever tax type it is, that might be a way to find the answer. Okay. All right. So the tax pages, the manuals, back to the revenues homepage here. The information for new businesses right here. Taxpayer education and outreach. What's here, everybody, class? Webinars, including the webinar video library. Scroll on down here. One of your assignments is to look through. I'm going to show 50. You can only show 50 at a time. I want you to look through the list, and if you want to like sort it here, I want you to check out the webinars we have on all the different topics that we have and just see if it applies to you. And I really think it's worth it to take the time to watch the video. It links over to YouTube. You can watch it in like double time, so it can only take you 30 minutes if you want to listen to us talk really fast. But if you think that one of these applies to you, I know we've got some contractors on here. Watch business tax for contractors, okay? Watch sales tax for contractors too, all you contractors. If you If you think that business tax applies to you, sales tax, F&E, just watch that basics webinar, because we're going to be in the actual webinar. We're going to be taking questions and talking with subject matter experts on these topics. And I just really think it would be a good business move for you. So yeah, just peruse Tennessee taxes and e-commerce sales. If you've got an online business, check that out. I'm not going to go through all these right now, but yeah. If you have Airbnbs or any short-term rentals, we got a webinar for that. Look at all these sales tax ones, y'all. Manufacturing exemption, military members, marketplace facilitators and sellers. If you sell anything online in any way, shape, or form, check that out. Okay. Just go over to the next page real quick, just to go to the top here. Resale certificates. I know I already mentioned that. Just kind of highlighting ones. Services subject to sales tax. If what I said about services subject to sales tax piqued your interest earlier, and you think you may be on the hook for sales tax based on the service you provide, please watch that webinar. That's supposed to say specified, not specialized. Specified digital products. Check that out. Taxation of computer software. I know we've got some people on here, several that were asking questions about that. Check out that webinar. If you sell at special events like Christmas Village or markets here and there, that would be a very good webinar for you to check out. If you're a nonprofit, these are just some basic ones. The TINTAP basics, please, please, please take the time to watch that. Again, it's on YouTube. If you don't know how to go quickly, watch a YouTube video quickly, there's a little setting where you can do like make it go 2 times. Do that. So you're busy, I know, but it is worth it to take the time to check out some of these webinars. Okay, I'm going to go over to 2 more places from our homepage, and then we're going to have some time to take some questions. Actually, what I'm going to do, well, I'll have to go out of here. I was going to go ahead and turn the chat on now. I'll just do this really quick. I keep talking about revenue help, but I haven't shown it to you yet. From our homepage, you just click on questions, revenue help right here. And this is where you can see all the different TINTAP articles, TINTAP login. Look, we've got 20 articles just on help with TINTAP logging in, gaining access to your tax account. That's going to be very important. You can call us, we can help you, but before doing that, you may want to just check this out. It walks you through it, okay? Check it out. All the different tax types have a section. So if you've got some questions about whatever tax types it is that you're liable for, check out the help articles about them. You can also type in a topic here. Software. I know we had some questions about that. 37 results for software. It'll tell you here, this is a sales and use tax article about computer software. Computer software consulting services. Don't remember who asked a question about that, but there was a question about that. So revenue help is very helpful. Here's another cool thing. If you can't find an answer to your question here, here's a quick way to send us a message, submit a request. You'll just tax questions, fill out this quick little form, your email address, what it's about, bam, it sends us a message. And during business hours, we have our metrics internally are to reply to these messages very quickly. Again, if it's a tax deadline day, if we just send out a huge mailing, you may not get an answer within 10 minutes, but we answer these very quickly, and then you have your answer in writing. But that's a cool way to search for it yourself, but then if you don't find it, then submit a question. All right, we're going to go to TINTAP now. From the homepage, you're going to click on the TINTAP tile. Oops, I already went there earlier, so it's making me do that. Okay, once you've created your login and all that, this is where you'll go to log in. But I'm going to show you some other cool things down here. You can make a quick payment. This view return links, if that's looking familiar, that's where I showed you can file that F&E minimum. Registration. This is where you will register a new business. If you're here and have not even done any of this yet, this is where you'll start, especially with your sales tax account or your F&E tax account. I recommend opening up a business tax account by going to your clerk's office and getting a standard business license. That's kind of there's two different ways. You can also register it here, but sometimes there's
Or
a
a
lot.
minimal business license.
Yes, that's right,
Both of
Julie.
you will get minimal business licenses starting out.
Yes. Um, exemptions. This is where you can apply for a sales and use tax exemption. This is cool. Sales and use tax certificate lookup. As a retailer, like I said, you are going to be, or you might be presented with an exemption certificate, whether it's somebody else saying, hey, I'm a seller and I want to sell your product. So I'm going to use my resale certificate to buy something from you to resell. They're going to give you that resale certificate, or maybe they've got an ag exemption or a government exemption. They're going to give you that exemption certificate, and then you're not going to charge them sales tax. Okay. You're going to keep that certificate. Remember, you keep that for audit purposes, and then you're also going to exempt it out on your sales tax return. But if you want to look up to see if it is a legitimate certificate that they're giving you, because sometimes there are not legitimate ones, you can do it right here, verify certificate. You look it up here. You can say it's an agriculture certificate or it's whatever it is. You can look it up right here. Certificate for resale, nonprofit, so on and so forth. They're all right here. And then you just type in the exemption number that's on that certificate that they show you, and you can verify that it is legitimate if you have any questions about that. Back to TINTAP, just a few more. I'll just show you approved brands and products would only apply to you if you're selling alcohol or beer. Information and help. This is cool if you're wanting to know what a tax account number is. Lots of cool stuff here, but check it out later. But this is a very useful thing. Look up tax account numbers. You'll need to provide like what's your business tax account number. You've got let's say you're a sole proprietor, right? So you've got your social. You're gonna plug it in. Certify that you're an authorized rep. It's going to ask you a few more questions, and then you'll get your tax account number there. So that might be helpful for you when you're setting up your TINTAP account, right? All right. Well, I am going to now, I'm glad we've got some time for questions. I'm going to open up the chat again to be able to send your question to Billy, Dan, or I. There we go.
Katie, thanks for doing such a great job on everything today. You've really covered a whole lot of material like we always do, and
It's
we really
overwhelming, I know.
appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's a lot, and so if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, what is all this stuff? I mean, I don't blame you.
Mhm.
It's quite a bit, right? But the thing is, like it says here on the slide, we've got our phone number and our email address and other resources out here for you. Make sure that you get in touch with us when you need us. Okay, that's what we're here for and all that. And then of course, all the different tax types that we have are out there for your registration needs and things of that nature, as we've been talking about all morning. And we do want to reiterate one more time that we are recording this, and it will be posted on the website either later today or in the morning. But we don't want you to go back and refer to this if you need to, and also tell other people, people that you know that might be starting new businesses, that we have all these tools for them. So that would be really helpful too.
So the first question I see here is from Deborah. In my TINTAP account, there is a sales tax action to file for December 2025, but the account was closed in October of 25. Do I need to file? This is a perfect example of you need to reach out to us. There's a disconnect somewhere there, Deborah. I'm not sure what it is, and it's whatever it is, it's fixable, but maybe that's the prime example of don't just ignore that. Call us.
Todd asked a question about F&E having offices in Alabama and Tennessee. Do you owe F&E tax on the entire LLC income? No, what you're going to do is you're going to apportion your income when you file the franchise and excise and remit the franchise and excise tax on Tennessee earnings. So make sure that you do the schedule on the F&E tax return regarding apportionment so that we don't charge on the overall all taxes worldwide, so to speak.
Yeah, so we had a cool webinar a couple months ago called Filing the F&E Tax Return. And I'm not an expert on F&E tax, far from it, but I specifically remember the subject matter expert that we had on that webinar mentioned, do not leave the apportionment. If you have income attributed to other states, you do not want to leave the apportionment. I think it's Schedule N. Don't quote me on that. You don't want to leave that. You don't want to leave that schedule just blank, or we'll assume. Blank means we assume 100% is Tennessee, and you'll pay more if you've got income, assets, all that in other states. You want to apportion that correctly. Webinar on filing the F&E return would be helpful.
One thing to tag on, Katie, on franchise and excise tax that a lot of people, we get a lot of questions this time of year, especially about this. There is a requirement in order to close your business that you get a tax clearance for termination certificate. Okay. So what does that mean? That means that you have to file all your taxes. That's all the different tax types, including the franchise and excise tax, make the proper payment and send that, and then basically request that we shut down your account. We'll issue that clearance certificate, and you can take that to the Secretary of State's office, give that to them, and say, hey, now I want to close out with Secretary of State. And they're like, great, here's what you do over there. Okay. But there's a process for that. Okay. You can't skip a step. You must do it. One of the main steps that some people do, and we see it all the time, is Katie mentioned collections. You know, we send out assessments, and sometimes people are like, "Oh, it says I owe $500. I got to pay this," and they just pay it, and they don't file the actual return. You have to file the return. We won't give you a clearance certificate unless you file the return. So even if it's back 2-3 years ago or more, and you paid an assessment and it says 0 on TIN-TAP, we can't give you a clearance until you file the actual return. Okay. So super important. Also, assessments are almost always way more than what you really owe. Don't pay it. File it and pay the tax, pay what you owe. If it's late, okay, some small charges for penalty and interest. We get that, right? You can even apply for a penalty waiver if you qualify for it. We encourage you to do that as well. But at the same time, you've got to file that return. You've got to pay that tax. Okay. So not trying to preach at you. I'm just trying to tell you how important it is because we get tons and tons of people that come in with that very same issue this time of year, and we have to kind of let them know about that. And they're usually needing something done today, which is real hard to do. So yeah,
Yeah.
just letting you know.
So Ashley says, do I include out-of-state sales in the gross sales on my sales tax return or just gross sales in Tennessee? Great question. We mentioned this, but we breezed over it real fast. Gross sales are going to be gross sales. It's all your sales. And then you deduct out. There's a deduction for sales to customers outside of
On sales
Tennessee.
tax return, it's Schedule A, line 7. It's a sale
There
in
you go.
interstate commerce, and
Okay.
you want to report it, then deduct it away.
Hmm.
But like Katie mentioned in her presentation, so you sold it to a customer in, I don't know, Missouri, right? Well, what does Missouri state sales tax laws say? Do you owe Missouri sales tax? I don't
We don't
know.
know. We don't know.
Right. But you may or may not. You would want to reach out to those states and figure it out. Not easy, by the way. The way things are sold these days, you can sell stuff to anybody, anywhere, it seems like. So it is kind of a lot. So just check with those other states as you need to.
Um, we've got a question from someone in here that's having a hard time closing out their account. Another Deborah, you're going to have to reach out to us if we're saying there's still something that's needed to close out your account. Yeah, you that is a definite phone call or message to us if it's not getting closed.
Right.
While we're waiting on any more questions, I know Billy just touched on this, but what you see in front of you right here, if you are a new business, find a way to follow us on one of these. If you're not a social media person, obviously we've got Facebook, Instagram, X, all those. If you're not a social media person, uh, sign up to receive email updates. Um, I think it's very important. We're not going to spam you with stuff, but just stay in touch with revenue some way, shape, or form. So this email address, revenue.support@tn.gov, that's if you email us, that's going to come through to us as a help ticket in the same way as when I was showing you revenue help, submit a ticket. Those come through to us in this same way. Same with if you're in the TNTAP assistant and it's not helping and you say submit, send us a message. All of those come through in the same way as like a support ticket to us. But it's a great way to reach out to us. But if you want to get a person on the phone, we have I'm not just saying that, y'all, I promise we have a very helpful call center. I will brag about that. 615-253-0600. Like Billy said, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. There, if you want to, we do have some regional offices and they have very limited hours, but you can make an appointment for a regional office if you want to go in and get some help, or somebody, if you go to make an appointment, can call you directly and see if they can help you so you don't have to waste time going and parking in a downtown somewhere. But this
Yeah.
link right here is over to our locations.
We'd rather help you by phone or email in whatever way we can because we don't want to inconvenience you. You know, why would we have you go into an office if you don't need to? However, we do have some staff there, like Katie says, as far as that goes too. One other just small helpful hint on the franchise and excise, going back to this, it is that time of year when we start getting these. If your business, your LLC, your corporation hasn't done any sort of income, so to speak, just kind of scratched at it a little bit in 2025, and it's time to file that return, get your account numbers, get everything set up or whatever. But like Katie had mentioned about that minimum $100 return, uh, if you go to that TNTAP page, don't log in with your credentials, with your username or password. There's a link under the return section that says view return links. Click on that. The very top one says $100 minimum F&E return. Click that link. The reason I'm bringing this up to you is that that is way easier to do than going into TNTAP and going through all of the questions and all of the schedules on TNTAP that most quote unquote regular businesses in operation have to do. Now, the only reason I bring that up is because I want to make it as easy as possible for you. Again, this is for brand new businesses with maybe even no income for the year that still have the filing requirement to make that $100 tax payment as well. Okay, that's the easiest way to do it. So make sure you do it that way if you can, and then when you are operational and everything, you'll go into the regular filing and all that too. One other cool thing, and Katie mentioned it too, if you happen to have a CPA or a tax preparer that does your federal taxes, typically they will file your state franchise and excise tax return along with that. Make sure they're doing that. Make sure you've had that conversation, okay? If not, then you'll have to do it yourself, right? But typically they will for a fee, obviously. But we're here to help you for free, turns out. And we're glad to do that for you too. Please keep in mind too, business tax is not franchise and excise tax. A lot of times people will say, well, my accountant filed my state taxes. Well, they filed your franchise and excise tax. They didn't file your business tax. Okay. Almost, I'll say, I guess that's a supposition, but a lot of times they don't even file the business tax because they depend on you as the business owner to do it. Okay.
All right, we've got time for a couple more questions. One is kind of specific, but I'm going to take this question to provide a bigger answer. Kevin says, I provide cybersecurity consulting to businesses, nonprofits. Oop, it just jumped around on me. Hold on. None are in Tennessee, not in Tennessee. Does that change things as far as reporting income? Okay, let's break this down, Kevin. Cybersecurity consulting. Let's look at sales tax. Is that a taxable service? It is not.
Right.
Cybersecurity consulting. So forget about sales tax, okay? I know this is just specific to one person's question, but this is just kind of showing you the logic we're going to work through here. His service is not subject to sales tax, so forget about that. Business tax. He says that none, I'm assuming you're in Tennessee, but it looks like your consulting is to customers not in Tennessee. I don't know if I'm reading that right, but let's just assume that's right. If you're in Tennessee and your sales, your gross receipts are between 10,000 and 100,000, you just need a minimal business license from your local county clerk's office and maybe city, and you're not going to be liable for business tax. If you make over 100, then you're going to be liable for business tax, but you can deduct. Remember I flew through the business tax deductions, but if most of your customers are not in Tennessee, you're providing a service outside of Tennessee. If you're providing that outside of Tennessee, then it wouldn't be then you can deduct it on your business tax return. Gets a little squirrely there if you're actually in Tennessee providing it, even if the customer's not. But more information about that in our business tax manual. So that kind of depends. Now F&E. If you're a cybersecurity consulting company located here in Tennessee and you are required to register with the Secretary of State, which means you're an LLC or you're a corporation, you are subject to F&E tax, okay? That's just regardless. You may be able to apportion a lot of your income to other states and won't owe very much, but yeah, so that answers that. I hope that answers that. One more question here. Anthony says, it's unclear for me how to renew my business license, specifically Davidson County. I only see an application for business license on the Davidson County Clerk's office. Okay, I'm going to break this down. I'm going to go over, I'm going to take one more, sorry, but this is real important. I got to do it. Take one more look at the business tax basics webinar chart about licenses, okay? Business tax basics. Okay, we're going to go to that little chart that was about licenses and renewing and how it all ties together with the county clerk's office. Here we go. All right. So if you have a minimal business license, you need to look at that license that you've got. If you've got a minimal business license, which means you make between 3 and 100K in annual gross sales, you, again, no business tax required, you are going to renew that directly with the clerk. Not all counties have online renewal. If they do, you'll see it on their website. If they don't, you'll have to go to the clerk's office to renew that minimal license. You renew a minimal license directly with the clerk. If you look and you see that your license says standard business license, and that is the correct license you should have because you have over 100 in gross sales, then you will file and pay business tax, which renews that license. You don't ever have to go anywhere and do anything. Filing and paying business tax for a standard business license renews your license. Our systems talk. Remember when I was saying that? We will let that county know, hey, Anthony filed and paid business tax. He's good to go. You can issue his renewed license, and then you should get it in the mail. You contact them if you don't. And one more time, I will say, if you look at your license and it says standard, but you didn't make over 100 in gross sales, you need to call us because you shouldn't have to file business tax, and we won't know unless you call us. If that standard license in our system says we're expecting a return from you, and then if we didn't receive that, then you're going to get in a bad loop of letters and stuff. So anyway.
Also, fun fact, and weird, if you call us during the business day, we're going to answer the phone and you're going to
Yeah.
actually talk to a human being. Unless it's Katie, which is a different story.
Yeah.
She's not really a human being. She's kind of like a robot or something.
All
No,
right.
but Anyway, yeah, go into these other resources, Katie. Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to share this really quick in our final moments. These are some cool resources if you don't already know about them, that I wanted to share with you. The Department of Economic and Community Development has a really cool Smart Start guide that is very helpful with starting a business. There's also a Smart Start portal. The Small Business Development Center is a network of centers that provides counseling and training that helps small business owners start, grow, and expand businesses. They have many free resources on their website, such as a step-by-step business planning workbook, and it's free, so that's cool. SCORE Association. It's volunteer business counselors, advisors, and mentors who offer individual free to low cost counseling. Most of it's free, I think, to low cost business counseling. It's all throughout the United States. Your area probably has one. They have online workshops that are free. They have this great one called the Startup Roadmap. Um, and the Small Business Administration, they have a business guide there as well. Um, Funding programs, federal contracting, lots of learning platforms, and local assistance. So, yeah, some great resources there. Billy, any final thoughts?
No, I just want to thank everybody for attending. This has been a long day, and we do want you to reach out to us for any of these unanswered questions, like we've been saying. But just don't be overwhelmed. Just understand that we're here to help you, and we want you to be successful, and we want you to reach out whenever you do have these questions.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being with us. And as you exit, there'll be a survey. If you have any feedback for us or any ideas for future webinars, please let us know. And if you are a tax professional here and you're wanting CPE credit for this, make sure you answer yes to that question and also provide your name as you would like it spelled on your CPE certificate. So thanks for being here. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.